cloudier in the north and west. Further wet weather is going to arrive here later. For the time being, just a risk of some drizzly rain for the likes of Northern Ireland, far southwest of Scotland, perhaps moving into the far north of Scotland later on today. Elsewhere, though, dry and bright, plenty of sunshine. Maybe a little bit hazy for some of us. We've still got the remnants of a weather front for some central areas of the UK, but it's going to be feeling warm in that June sunshine. Temperatures approaching the mid-20s for southeastern areas and even across central areas of England as well. So high UV levels, and it is in fact the summer solstice today, so the sun won't be setting till very late. We've got 19 hours of sunlight or daylight across Lerwick today, and somewhere between 19 and 16 hours across the UK. So plenty of sunshine, or time to enjoy the sunshine through today, and it will be a fairly bright end to the day later on today. There's potentially still a little bit more cloud around across Wales and up towards the Humber as well. A risk of some rain, but I think for most of us it's going to be very much a dry day. However, through this evening, as I said, it will turn a bit wetter across the far north or west of Scotland and into Northern Ireland. That's a weather front approaching from the northwest. It's not going to make great progress inland, but it will push into parts of central Scotland later on in the night, bringing cloudier skies up for many western areas. So a little bit milder in the west, still fairly fresh though to start the day across eastern areas, but another bright start. There could be some mist and fog around very first thing, but the sunrise is rising around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so it should clear quite quickly or by the time you are up and about. So through the rest of Friday, a little bit more in the way of cloud compared to Thursday, but still fairly warm in the sunshine, particularly across the south and east, with potentially some wet weather arriving later on in the west. See you later. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M42 in the West Midlands is partly blocked northbound by an accident between junctions 5 and 5A near Solihull, causing delays in Northamptonshire. Weedon Road is closed into and out of Northampton between the Sixfields roundabout and Upton Valley Way North for an investigation. In Oxfordshire, the A424 is closed in both directions between Tainton and Milton under Wychwood after an accident. In London on the A1, the inside lane's closed southbound where a van's broken down at the junction with Hendon Lane in Hendon, with queues towards there from the A41 Five Ways corner. On the M26 in Kent, there are long westbound delays towards the M25 again this morning because of roadworks, and in West Sussex the A27 is blocked by an accident near the Lions Farm retail park in Worthing, causing long delays. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
3 years ago, the small town of Evanston proudly became the first local government in the... It's just outside Chicago, by the way. The first local government in the US to start paying slavery reparations to its black citizens. But now the council is being sued in a federal court for exhibiting exactly the sort of prejudice it decries. By saying, well, basically, you know, the Hispanics, the white people, they are being discriminated against because they're not getting anything.
The people that were compensated were adults, people that were adults between 1919 and 1969. Now, they lived under a time, in terms of education, in terms of the job market, they were literally barred from having certain jobs, going to certain healthcare clinics and going to certain schools. So that is a set of very distinct challenges that white people, Hispanic people, Asian people did not face. So that is precisely why they've been compensated in this way. And I think it's about £20,000 it works out to. I would have given him a lot more.
But you see, the thing is, history, we learn from history and we move on, and people evolve. And in order to reach a certain goal and a certain level of parity, which is what we all want to do, and through no way of levelling up, and this is a form of levelling up, by the way, it's nothing else, and it's divisive and it's patronising, I think it's absolutely disgusting. There were people in modern history who were discriminated against constantly, and I think it's so divisive to keep going back, to keep reiterating, to keep saying, oh, poor you, between 1919 and 1969, you couldn't get a mortgage. Well, that was wrong. No one's saying it was right. But do we need to be compensated for that?
The legal challenge is saying that this is creating more divisions.
Yes.
The past is affecting the present, but not in a good way.
The People's Channel.
Morning, 9:30 on Thursday, the 20th of June. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very good morning to you. So, the missing teen in Tenerife is still missing. The search continues for 19-year-old Jay Slater, who was last seen on Monday. His mother says it is a living nightmare.
Just Stop Oil defacing jets this morning. Two of their activists broke into Stansted airfields to vandalise multiple planes where it's believed Taylor Swift's private jet is parked. 2 people have been arrested.
This also comes at the same time as the ancient monument Stonehenge was vandalised by Just Stop Oil yesterday. Thousands of people head there for the annual summer solstice celebrations today.
Acid attacks on the rise. Attacks and threats using acid have increased by 75% in a year, but only a tiny amount of cases actually lead to criminal charges.
And a strong vapes surge. There's been a 10-fold rise in the number of vapers using high-strength e-cigarettes, and the increase has been seen mostly in 18 to 24-year-olds. That vaping story.
Well,
It makes me so angry.
and of course we're going to talk to somebody from the vaping industry because, of course, they say vaping is good because it gets people off of cigarettes, but this is getting young people into smoking and increasingly now they're using more and more dangerous.
And addicted to nicotine.
Yeah, horrible.
Get in touch this morning, won't you? gbnews.com/your-say. First, though, the very latest news headlines of Sam Francis.
Andrew, Bev, thank you very much. Good morning to you. It's just after 9:30. The top stories from the newsroom this morning. And we'll just start with some breaking news coming to us from north of London, where we understand 2 Just Stop Oil protesters have been arrested on suspicion of criminal damage. That's after they covered 2 jets in orange paint. Footage posted by the group to social media shows those demonstrators using fire extinguishers to cover 2 aircraft at Stansted Airport, and that is where Taylor Swift's plane has just landed this morning. It's not yet known if the singer's jet was among those targeted. In other news this morning, the Gambling Commission is reportedly looking into a second Conservative candidate regarding allegations of election betting. It comes after another candidate, Craig Williams, admitted to making a huge error of judgment when he placed a bet on when the general election would take place. He was previously a parliamentary aide to Rishi Sunak. A member of the Prime Minister's protection team was also arrested last night amid similar allegations. A friend of missing British teenager Jay Slater says that she fears she's been fobbed off by police in Tenerife after she reported his disappearance. The 19-year-old from Lancashire hasn't been seen for now 3 days when he told his friends he didn't know where he was and that he had cut his leg. And another poll is forecasting more bad news for Rishi Sunak, with Labour on course for a landslide victory in July's election. YouGov data suggests the Conservatives will slump to their lowest number of seats ever, while Labour could win a 200-seat advantage. It's also predicting that significant gains could be possible for the Liberal Democrats. They're set to win 67 seats. That's 6 times their result in 2019. And thousands of people are expected to arrive at Stonehenge later to celebrate the summer solstice. The ancient monument is still open after 2 Just Stop Oil protesters were arrested there yesterday for throwing orange powder paint over the stones. English Heritage says the landmark suffered no visible damage. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. Your next update at 10 o'clock. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning, 9:35. It's Thursday. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Well, in a moment, we're going to give our take on those Just Stop Oil idiots vandalising planes, attacking what many people regard as a shrine down at Stonehenge in the last 24 hours. But first, we're going to look back at what our politicians got up to. First, I just want to show you the front page of the Daily Telegraph. You can see that, the headline, Tory wipeout. 3 polls suggesting in one that the Tory party will be down to just 53 MPs, and one of the casualties will be the Prime Minister himself and the Chancellor of the Exchequer. Both, according to that poll, Savanta will lose their seats. The best one for them gives them, I think, about 115, 120 seats.
But it's like, how does Rishi Sunak wake up in the morning? Imagine having this responsibility on your shoulders. It must be horrific. Well,
I was at a Tory event a couple of nights ago. The anger in the room.
Yeah.
That he called an early election.
I know.
The anger in the room that Nigel Farage is now in the campaign, because, of course, if they'd gone in November, Farage would have been worked side by side with Trump.
Absolutely. He'd be over there working with Trump, wouldn't he? Right, let's have a look what's been happening in the last 24 hours. Here you go.
Well, the hard truth is that for millions of people, they're not going to be feeling better off today. Food prices are 25% higher than they were just 2 years ago. And, of course, the average mortgage holder is seeing their mortgage go up by £3,000.
Of course, an independent Scotland, like all countries, would face challenges. Success would not be guaranteed. That would be determined by our own decisions as a country and the choices we make. But when we look at independent European countries similar to Scotland, there are grounds for optimism and hope. Countries like Denmark, Ireland and Sweden are wealthier per head than the United Kingdom.
We have been really clear that we're not raising income tax, national insurance or VAT. All of our plans are fully funded and don't require tax rises over and above what we've already set out. And that is because we're focusing on growing our economy.
If people come here illegally, they shouldn't be able to stay. We need to remove them somewhere else. And if we can get that up and running, then people will stop coming. And multiple other European countries agree with us. That's a choice for people at this election.
If Keir Starmer becomes the Prime Minister, within 6 months, Britain will be at war. I don't mean a proxy war. I don't mean special forces dressed up as Arabs or Russians, Ukrainians. I mean an actual war.
So that was in succession order, because we didn't capture who they were. That was Daisy Cooper, the Lib Dem deputy leader, followed by John Swinney, who is the Scottish National Party leader, followed by Sir Keir Starmer. I think people have probably worked out who he is by now. He's a really exciting one. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and George Galloway from the Workers' Party. And they're out and about today. And, of course, there is a big debate tonight for politicians. It's with an audience. That is always tricky.
BBC debate.
BBC debate. So it's the Prime Minister. It's Starmer. It's
Sunak, Starmer, Lib Dems.
And Swinney, the SNP leader.
And no Nigel Farage, which, of course, he is not very happy about. But you could say, again, this casts him as the marginalised, and you know what this country's like, but they root for an underdog. It might do him more harm than good, more good than harm, to not be there.
So, 2 Just Stop Oil activists have been arrested after breaking into a private airfield in Stansted, where they vandalised several planes in their endless campaign to end fossil fuels by 2030.
It's the same airfield where Taylor Swift's private jet is thought to be parked, and, of course, they were a pain in the backside yesterday too. 2 activists sprayed the historic monument Stonehenge in orange powdered paint just a day before celebrations begin for the summer solstice at the 5,000-year-old landmark, and they have now been arrested. Good.
So the politicians all, of course, piled in to criticise it. Sir Keir Starmer said the group was pathetic and those responsible must face the full force of the law.
Doesn't he take funding from somebody?
He does. He takes it from Dale Vince, and Dale Vince has been a major funder of Just Stop Oil, and I think he's given Labour about £2 million. I'll check that figure. So it's all very well to say they're pathetic. So why is he taking money from an organisation, from a donor who supports, with his own money, Just Stop Oil?
The Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, called the act disgraceful. So do you have any sympathy for them at home? Let us know, gbnews.com/your say. I think I know what you're probably going to say about this. I find the Stonehenge target particularly troubling.
Yeah.
Because if you're arguing that you want to save the planet for future generations, if there's something about your campaign which is about the preservation of this earth and everything that it stands for, why would you attack such an important symbol of history?
I know.
That that is there for the next generation, that has been retained and protected for the next generation.
All about the sun and nature and the position of the sun and the longest day. 5,000 years old, that monument. These people are just cretins, I'm afraid. It is cretinous and is nothing sacred. No, it isn't. But I suppose they'll argue we're talking about them. But I don't think they do their cause any good whatsoever. They drag it down every time.
And you know what? I'm really torn. I have exactly that thought. As I was coming in this morning and I was thinking, I almost don't want to mention this story. The dilemma is, do you give them the oxygen of publicity? I think it's backfiring on them.
I do.
Anyway,
do.
You went on social media, people saying, well, this just makes me going to want to go and make sure I don't buy an electric car next time.
Yeah.
It's provoking the opposite reaction to their cause. So.
And one of them was, I think he was 70 years old or something. Old enough to know better if you're watching. I don't suppose he is watching.
Right, moving on, a friend of the missing British teenager, Jay Slater, fears that she's been fobbed off by police in Tenerife after reporting his disappearance.
So the 19-year-old from Lancashire, to remind you, hasn't been seen for 3 days. When he told his friends he didn't know where he was and he'd cut his leg, he'd been out for the evening and he only had a little bit of power left in his phone.
His mother understandably said the whole experience is a living nightmare.
So Chris Elkington is the editor of the Canarian Weekly and he joins us from southern Tenerife. Chris, morning to you. Each day that goes past gets more worrying for his family. What is the latest, Chris?
Well, after a false alarm yesterday of a sighting of Jay, at around 8 o'clock this morning, we saw the helicopters go overhead as the search has resumed in the Masca and Tenno Rural Park area for Jay, who has been missing since Monday morning. At the moment, the Guardia Civil are leading the operation, which includes mountain rescue teams. The fire brigade are now involved as well to search in ravines and valleys, as it's a very mountainous area. And they're also using drones and helicopters to look from the air to see if they can find anything that may lead to his whereabouts.
Chris, just take us through his steps, would you? Because he'd been at this music festival, and then what?
Well, the Energy Music Festival is something that's organised twice a year. It's a well-organised event in over 3 days in different locations. The last one was on Sunday evening in a nightclub called Papagayo in Las Americas, and somehow he's ended up 30 kilometres up the west coast in this remote area of Masca and Tenno, allegedly going back with friends he'd made at the festival. What is surprising that he wouldn't have gone there till early hours of Monday morning and left very shortly afterwards without any phone signal, without any water, without being offered to be taken back or taken to the local town or bus stop. So it's a very strange one. If you actually put in the route into your phone, it will take you the opposite way around the island. And that's why he's walking in that area towards the rural park rather than south towards where he was staying. And the concern is that he's gone off route. It's an area that's vast, it's very barren, very arid, very dry. And obviously with these temperatures in the high 20s, if you go off route, you can very, very easily get lost or trip, fall, and be, if you haven't got a phone signal, very hard to call for help. So it's a very concerning situation for everyone involved, but especially his family and friends.
And his mum, we think, is out there, Chris. Is she literally with the police, or what is she actually doing?
Yes, Debbie arrived on the first plane out of Manchester. The friends and family are trying to organise search teams as well. However, the police have asked them if they can just leave them to do their job. It's a very dangerous terrain, and the mountain rescue teams know it much better than obviously the rest of us do. And they don't want to have to worry about looking after the people who are looking for Jay rather than concentrating on looking for Jay. So, they have been looking late at night along the coasts, along the beaches in Las Americas, Los Cristianos, but they have asked that the area they're focusing on, where they have the leads, that the police are left to do their job.
Chris, he's a young kid, obviously 19 years old. He's busy on social media, as are his friends. He'd posted a video, hadn't he, from the music festival. In fact, he posted a picture, a still on his Snapchat account, from inside the house that he'd gone to in the early hours of the morning. And then yesterday there was a false, as you mentioned at the top of the interview, there was a false sighting. What happened there?
Well, you've got the good and bad sides of social media. Unfortunately, the good side has been the exposure, or the way that the awareness has been raised so quickly is incredible. Into how everyone has picked up on Jay being missing. The downside, unfortunately, is every time somebody sees, anybody who may resemble him, whether it be walking along the coast, whether it be in a taxi like this one was, like the false alarm was, or even a police car going past with blue lights, you have a flood of messages and posts, claiming that people, it could be him. The one in Las Americas Los Cristianos was someone in a taxi who also turned out to be a 19-year-old young man on holiday, but it wasn't Jay, unfortunately. So the search has been resumed in the Masca and Tenno rural park areas.
All right, Chris. Well, thanks for updating us, Chris. That's Chris Elkington. He's the editor of the Canarian Weekly, and he was joining us from southern Tenerife. The mother, she said she hasn't slept a wink. Of course,
intolerable.
She hasn't.
Yeah. Awful. I mean, the idea that if you get there and the police say, leave us to it, there's no way. There's no way you could leave me to it. I'd have my trainers on and I would be out there pacing every single inch of where he might have walked.
Of course he would. He's obviously... Well, there's no point speculating, but you just suspect in the heat he's become disorientated.
Right, let us know your thoughts this morning. gbnews.com/your say.
Now, football news. Obviously, Bev and I are all over this. Scotland could still make it into the last 16 of the Euros, and England are taking on Denmark later. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Today we've got two fantastic individuals who have invented a teddy bear to help children who are suffering with mental health.
Yes, so Lynn and Samantha Crilly came up with the idea for the Trouble Muncher toy following Samantha's own battle with an eating disorder and OCD.
Yes, the teddy comes with a notepad and encourages its owners to write down what's troubling them, and then they can pop the note into the rucksack on the bear's back.
I struggled with mental health most of my life, actually, and oh no, it's fine. I've got one. I feel quite sorry for you. But and one thing I always did was message my mum, and it was a thought disassociation kind of technique. I would message you. Even now, I message you thoughts that come into my mind, but massively when I was younger. And I thought, what happens if you're younger and you don't have this?
Yeah, and I think in today's technology-fueled world, I think we go back to basics, and it just helps them to process by writing it down. Everything's so instant these days.
So it's like an indirect way of telling your parents how you're feeling, what you're going through. Such a great idea. What's the feedback been from parents who have got a Trouble Muncher for their kids? What you've got any stories?
It's been really good. In one household, he sits on the kitchen side, and I think during the day, the parents, the children put their worries in, or at night, and then they know that their parents will look at it during the day. And it's gone into some schools as well.
You'd imagine you'd want one of these Trouble Munchers in every classroom and in every school up and down the country, because children who are being bullied, for example, who feel like they can't tell their parents, they're too embarrassed to talk about it. This is such an important tool, isn't it, for children to communicate that?
Yeah, well, you were saying Mum's a mental health counsellor, and you had a young child who had Snapchat AI. So you talk to an AI in Snapchat, and that's what they talk to now.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans, and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, this is an unexpected treat. We've got Aidan McGee in with us to talk about the Euros. Now, it won't surprise you to know, Aidan, I've not watched it yet.
What?
Not yet.
Unbelievable.
But Scotland did good.
Yeah,
considering
I would
they
say
did so badly at the beginning.
Oh, it was terrible. Listen, Andrew, it's one thing losing on opening night against Germany. They are the host nation. They're one of the favourites. Even getting beaten 5-1 is not unheard of against a team of that calibre, but there is a manner of defeat, a manner of victory, and a manner of everything in between. You have to fight, you have to be aggressive, you have to cover your space, you have to just do the basics of trying to compete in a football match, Bev. And they didn't do that. And that's why the mood in the Tartan Army camp was extremely low for quite a few days. But what a difference just a few days makes, because suddenly they get a draw against a very accomplished Switzerland side last night. They went ahead. Still, some of the passes were going astray a little bit. Not everything was perfect, but the fans went out of there last night thinking, we were wrong about that team. They had a bad first night. It was a bad day at the office. And suddenly they've shown us that they care.
What changed?
So what changed is that they brought Billy Gilmour into the midfield. And he's a Premier League player, calibre player. They haven't got loads of those in their squad, if I'm honest with you.
Who does he play for in the Premier League, Billy Gilmour?
Brighton. He's been at Chelsea in the past, but he's played well in tournaments before. He's only 20. Well, I say 22. He's 22, but he's been around for a few years with Scotland, and he's able to hold the ball. And it's so quick. When you're an inferior team going into these matches, you need players who are going to hang on to the ball. You've got to take... They call it in the game, we call it taking care of the ball. And so they had a little bit more possession last night. They took the lead, and suddenly the crowd were up, and the dynamics change almost entirely. So what that means is that they go into Sunday's game against Hungary, and they're on the verge of history, because no Scotland side, and I'm including sides that had Kenny Dalglish, Alan Hansen, Graham Souness, all these players in them, and they were never able to get out and advance from the group. It was always a big joke. But now, on Sunday, Hungary have lost their first 2 games. No one's taken anything as read, but they've given themselves a fighting chance of advancing. And that's going to be magnificent for the country if they do it.
And England this afternoon?
5 o'clock in Frankfurt. So Denmark are not the side they were. We played them in Euro 2020, which of course was played a year later in Euro 2021. We almost called it that. In 2021, in the semi-finals, their main players are 3 years older. But England, in terms of how they line up, look, if they go into it with the same side as played Serbia last week, yes, they're a bit rubbish after the half an hour. But Serbia again, a decent side. They got Denmark today. Even if Gareth Southgate ignores the clamour for 1 or 2 tweaks here and there, they'll have more than enough to beat Denmark. I'm certain of that. I'm not saying they'll thrash it. They'll thrash them, but I think they'll get through.
And quick one, Andy Murray is worth 130 million quid. He's got 4 young children, but he still wants to carry on playing tennis. But what's happened?
He's not the bionic man anymore.
Well, he actually is. He's full of metal. That's the point. But it's just how long it's carrying him on. But it's a new injury. That's what I'm worried about, because he's having a scan today.
He had to pull out at Queen's yesterday.
He did. He's won that tournament 5 times, not for a while, I have to say. But, he pulled out of that, and it makes him a major doubt, so close to Wimbledon to happen. And he wants to say goodbye there. That's where he won his 2 Grand Slams in this country. And you know what? In my lifetime, Andrew, I never thought I'd see a Grand Slam winner, male or female, who came from Britain. So to see it not just in the US Open, which happened in 2012, but also twice more at Wimbledon and at the Olympics as well.
He's had a good run.
He's had a magnificent run.
He's amazing, but you've got to know when to go. You want to be able to walk with those kids for the next 20 years of your life, at least. Take them out and play on the beach. You don't want to be hobbling along with 2...
5-second prediction score today.
I said 1-0 last time, and I got it right. I'm going to go 1-0 again this time to England.
And also, Andrew Pearce has vowed that if we get through to the quarter-finals, you're going to come on the telly...
No semi-finals.
Semi-finals. You're going to come in wearing football kit,
I'm going to wear the England kit.
Get your knees out.
Yeah.
I know a bloke who he waited for Man City to win a major.
And then if we win, you're going to have to streak across the studio, so be careful.
I know a bloke who did that.
Don't go anywhere. Still to come, 99-year-old D-Day veteran Les Underwood is joining us after returning from Normandy. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Here's Annie with the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Another dry and fine day for many of us. Plenty of warm sunshine, but it is a little bit cloudier in the north and west. Further wet weather is going to arrive here later. For the time being, just a risk of some drizzly rain for the likes of Northern Ireland, far southwest of Scotland, perhaps moving into the far north of Scotland later on today. Elsewhere, though, dry and bright, plenty of sunshine. Maybe a little bit hazy for some of us. We've still got the remnants of a weather front for some central areas of of the UK, but it's going to be feeling warm in that June sunshine. Temperatures approaching the mid-20s for southeastern areas and even across central areas of England as well. So high UV levels, and it is in fact the summer solstice today, so the sun won't be setting till very late. We've got 19 hours of sunlight or daylight across Lerwick today, and somewhere between 19 and 16 hours across the UK. So plenty of sunshine, or time to enjoy the sunshine through today, and it will be a fairly bright end to the day later on today. It's potentially still a little bit more cloud around across Wales and up towards the Humber as well. A risk of some rain, but I think for most of us it's going to be very much a dry day. However, through this evening, as I said, it will turn a bit wetter across the far north or west of Scotland and into Northern Ireland. That's a weather front approaching from the northwest. It's not going to make great progress inland, but it will push into parts of central Scotland later on in the night, bringing cloudier skies for many western areas. So a little bit milder in the west, still fairly fresh though to start the day across eastern areas, but another bright start. There could be some mist and fog around very first thing, but the sunrise is rising around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so it should clear quite quickly, or by the time you are up and about. So through the rest of Friday, a little bit more in the way of cloud compared to Thursday, but still fairly warm in the sunshine, particularly across the south and east, with potentially some wet weather arriving later on in the west. See you later. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There are delays of up to 50 minutes to trains heading west from Sheffield to Manchester Piccadilly because of a faulty train. In Northamptonshire, Weedon Road is closed into and out of Northampton for an investigation between the Sixfields roundabout and Upton Valley Way North, affecting traffic to and from junction 16 of the M1. On the A1 in London, the inside lane's closed southbound where a van's broken down at Hendon Lane. Queues from the A41 at Five Ways Corner. On the M26 in Kent, there are long westbound delays approaching the M25 because of road work. In West Sussex, the A27 is partly blocked each way by an accident near to the Lions Farm Retail Park in Worthing, causing long delays. And also on the A27 in West Sussex, there's a lane closed westbound again today, along with the exit to the A283 at Shoreham by Sea for emergency bridge repairs, causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's still time to win our Summer Spectacular with an incredible trio of treats, and you could win them. First, there's a fabulous £15,000 in tax-free cash to ensure this summer is special. What would you spend that on? Next, you'll also receive the latest iPhone 15 and a set of Apple AirPods. And finally, £500 to spend at your favourite UK attraction. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but it's actually about you.
And we won't ever forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
Now more than ever, it's important to hear
all sides as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
10 o'clock on Thursday the 20th of June. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with me, Bev Turner and Andrew Pearce.
The missing teen in Tenerife. The search is continuing for 19-year-old Jay Slater, who was last seen on Monday. His mother, who's on the island, says it is a living nightmare.
And Just Stop Oil have been at it again. This time, 2 activists have been arrested after they broke into Stansted airfields to vandalise multiple planes.
And, of course, only yesterday, the ancient monument of Stonehenge was vandalised by the same idiots.
And is it going to be a significant Tory wipeout? 3 new polls show that Labour will win the election with enormous majorities, leaving the Tories looking at their worst defeat in 100 years.
Gary Neville, still a Red. The Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer recruited the help of the football star to promote his election campaign in his latest party political broadcast.
And a D-Day veteran speaks out. We're going to be joined by 99-year-old war hero Les Underwood. He says he would not fight again for this country because of the state that it's in today.
He's 99, and you know he signed up for the forces when he was 15. Broke the law.
He lied about his age, didn't he?
He did.
He's going to be here with us in the studio.
So we're looking forward to it. He was a Royal Naval gunner. And, of course, he saw a lot of his mates die.
Yeah, of course.
Hugely significant.
GBNews.com/your say to talk to us and each other. But first, the very latest news with Sam Francis.
Bev, Andrew, thank you very much. Good morning to you. It's 1 minute past 10 and leading the news this morning. The Gambling Commission is reportedly now looking into a second Conservative candidate regarding allegations of election betting. We understand that Laura Sanders is the subject of those inquiries. She is married to the Conservative Party's campaign director, Tony Lee. Well, it comes after Craig Williams admitted to making a huge error of judgment when he placed a bet on when the general election would take place. He was previously a parliamentary aide to Rishi Sunak. A member of the Prime Minister's protection team was also arrested last night amid similar allegations. A friend of the missing British teenager, Jay Slater, says that she fears she's been fobbed off by police in Tenerife after she reported his disappearance. The 19-year-old from Lancashire hasn't been seen now for 3 days. When he told his friends he didn't know where he was and that he had cut his leg. Despite his mobile phone being on 1% battery, he did manage to send a photo of his location. His mother has joined a team of mountain rescuers and the local police on the search, which has now entered its 3rd day. Another poll is forecasting more bad news for Rishi Sunak, with Labour on course for a landslide victory in July's general election. YouGov data is suggesting the Conservatives will slump to their lowest number of seats ever, while Labour could win a 200-seat advantage. It's also predicting significant gains for the Lib Dems, winning 67 seats, which would be 6 times their result in 2019.
I want to make, and am making whenever I can, that strong case. And certainly when I am with Conservative candidates out in the field, people are responding to the case that they are making. So I feel a sense of optimism about that. But at the same time, there are these opinion polls, and you entirely understandably ask me about them. And so my point is, well, I'm not convinced they're right. I really think it is possible that we can do significantly better than these polls indicate. But in fairness, if you ask me a fair question about them, I've got to say, well, if they are accurate, then I fear the consequences.
Michael Gove there speaking to us about those polls this morning. Well, housing will be at the centre of the Conservative Party's election campaigning today. The Prime Minister says he's the only leader who will help first-time buyers. He pointed to the Conservatives' plan to abolish stamp duty on properties worth up to £420,000, which he says will help young buyers get on the property ladder. Meanwhile, Labour is also pitching its message to house buyers today on the campaign trail. Sir Keir Starmer says voters associate the Conservatives with spiralling mortgage costs following Liz Truss's mini-budget. And he says renters will also be better off with them in power. Well, that comes as News Today has suggested the average first-time buyer needs to earn more than £60,000 a year to buy a property. Property website Zoopla looked at the asking price of homes for sale around the £250,000 mark, while assuming people would have a 20% deposit and borrow around 3 times their income. The website estimates that those trying to get onto the property ladder need an income of nearly £15,000 more than they would have needed 5 years ago. The Bank of England is expected to hold interest rates steady when they announce their latest decision this lunchtime. Most economists believe policymakers will keep rates at 5.25%. That's despite inflation finally reaching the target of 2% for the first time in 3 years yesterday. Well, as we've been hearing this morning, 2 Just Stop Oil protesters have been arrested on suspicion of criminal damage. That's after they covered 2 private jets with orange paint. Footage posted by the group to social media shows those demonstrators using fire extinguishers to cover the plane at Stansted Airport. It had been reported that Taylor Swift landed at Stansted this morning. However, it's now been confirmed by police that she was not there at the time. And thousands of people are expected to arrive at Stonehenge later to celebrate the summer solstice. The ancient ruin is still open despite 2 other Just Stop Oil protesters getting arrested there yesterday for throwing orange powder paint over those stones. Specialists are being sent there to assess the damage. Senior politicians from all parties have condemned what happened at the site. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. I'll be back with your next update in half an hour. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts.
Right, it is 10:06 with Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Well, we've got the panel in a little earlier today because we've got the former Labour advisor, Scarlett Maguire, and the former Conservative Minister, Robert Halpern, Sir Robert Halpern, I think. Robert, can I just talk before we talk about anything else? Just going to show the headline on the front page of The Telegraph. Tory wipeout, 3 polls predicting Armageddon. One of the polls, Robert, suggesting the Tories will have 53 seats. They had 365 when Boris won the election in 2019. You've fought 6 general elections, I think. You won quite a few of them. Is it going to be that bad?
Well, first of all, I'm not. I think you said I was a sir.
Sir?
I'm not. I am a right on.
Matter of time.
Well, you should be.
I am a right on, and I wanted to kiss the late Queen's hands as a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
But that's about it. So, in terms of the election, look, the way I see it, it's never over till it's over. And of course, the opinion polls don't look great for the Conservatives, but I'm out in my constituency campaigning for my successor almost every day. A brilliant parliamentary candidate. I know I'm not allowed to name her.
Yeah.
I campaign outside places like Lidl's, for example, and where real people go, real working people. And I don't meet one person, not one, unless they're a Labour activist or a Labour member who says they love Starmer or they're going to vote Labour. What I do see, of course, is anger against us, without a doubt, being honest, partly and mostly because of the cost of living challenges that people have had to face month in, month out. And there are all kinds of reasons for that, COVID, the war and other things.
Liz Truss.
Oh, and Liz Truss. Well, if you look back at the polls, we went down to 20. Those polls you highlighted, we were down 20 when that episode went on, and people were really angry. That was our ERM moment. That was our ERM moment. Same thing happened to John Major.
Yeah.
When the ERM debacle happened, we never recovered.
Yeah.
But what I do think is also a lot of people are expressing anger at the polls about us, but I do think when they go into the polls and they have to make a decision, who's going to put bread and butter on our table, who's going to cut our taxes, who's going to make sure the economy gets back on track, I really believe that because there isn't this love for Labour as there was for Tony Blair, and I was in Harlow when Tony Blair was PM, I really think that some of these reform voters will come back. Some of the undecideds will vote Conservative. So whilst I'm not claiming this is fantastic news for the Conservatives, I don't think it's going to be quite as bad as the papers are showing.
I think Robert's put his finger on a point here about Labour. Look, you'll defend them, of course, but there isn't a great passion for Sir Keir Starmer in the way that Blair was telegenic, he was modern. There was sense of real excitement about that man. There isn't about Starmer. And looking at the polls today, they say again and again, no great love for Starmer.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what people... I think the real problem is that people have lost their trust in politicians, right? And so, I mean, what Labour has to do is they have to deliver what they said. And I think that it goes back a long way, but I really don't think that Boris Johnson helped when he made all these promises and nothing happened. And then Rishi Sunak, I mean, as Robert says, Liz Truss was a disaster. But then Rishi Sunak says, I'm going to do all these things. And they didn't happen. I mean, you know, I'm going to lower the NHS waiting list. I'm going to stop the boats. I mean, the problem is that it's the mistrust of the political class, and actually, and this is what I say to the Labour MPs, that the ex-MP, the candidates, that I talk to, and I go, you know, you have to go in there and deliver. I mean, there is no question, because otherwise we're going to go on having this volatility with people just going there all the same.
I mean, you've said this for a long time, Bev, that you think that people have just switched off from a lot of
I think they've switched off from a lot of politics, but I think there's also just this sense that the detachment, there's never been such a gap between the elite political ruling class and the people on the street. I've never known such a disconnect. And that is partly the appeal of Nigel Farage, because it's that Trump effect. We were just chatting in the break, weren't we, Robert, about the fact that to some extent this feels like the post-lockdown election. People are hitting the Conservatives.
Well, if you look across the world, almost every incumbent government that had lockdown, they are facing anger from the public.
They've all been kicked out, almost.
All of them are facing anger, and especially the Ukraine cost of living challenges have been enormous for my former constituents in Harlow. And people have really struggled. You know, I have somebody come up to me and say, I'm working 45 hours a week for tiny money, I barely keep my head above water. And people walking into our local sandwich cafe wearing 3 coats because they can't, when it's cold, they can't afford to put the energy bills on at home. And I'm proud that the government has done a lot in the average family, I think, has had over £3,000 to help with energy bills. We spent about nearly 100 billion trying to help with the cost of living, but people have still faced these challenges.
You see, people aren't stupid, Scarlett, and they know now, because inflation went up so hugely after lockdowns were released, because everybody turned the gas on, and you know, and the price of fuel went up so hugely, and we didn't. And they can see the effects now, but they knew that during that period of time, 2020 onwards, Labour was shouting on for more. More restrictions, more control,
there's no question
more schools closed down.
That Labour were incredibly worried about the effect of the pandemic, and they were worried that...
Not the effects of the pandemic. They might have been worried about an infection, but they weren't, because all they did was ask for more.
Yeah, and they were worried about the level of infection. I mean, you know, I had lots of friends, because I'm older than you are, who were old and who were really, really frightened. And then I had younger friends with lung problems. I mean, it's the problem about the pandemic is that we can look afterwards and say this is what should have happened, but actually the thing is that if you're running the government, you have to do safety first. And that's actually what they were going for. But I think it's more than post-pandemic. I think it's about, I mean, it's about not delivering. But I think the frightening thing about Nigel Farage is you look at the reform contract, and it is utter garbage.
What didn't you like about it?
Well, the sums don't add up.
He says that, he admits that, though. He doesn't pretend it's anything other than a statement of intent, because he knows they've got no prospect of getting more than a handful of MPs this time.
I know. So what you do is what he does is he goes, if he gets in, and it'll be a handful if not just one, actually. If he gets in, what he'll be doing is he'll be carping from the sidelines, and it's really easy to carp from the sidelines without. I mean, as he's proved with his so-called contract with the people, is that actually when given a thing to say what I would do if I was in government, it is absolutely.
We need people carping from the sidelines, though, don't we, Robert? Especially if we've got this massive majority of Labour MPs.
Yeah, of course, and I get that Nigel Farage is charismatic, but it's very easy to shout, this is a terrible show. It's very easy to do that and then say, motherhood and apple pie, we will make this happen, that happen. I've been in government. It is hard to get things to solve complex problems. And actually, one of the reasons why I genuinely like Rishi Sunak, why I supported him after Sajid Javid as the leader, was because I felt that he is a man who can solve complex problems, and he has tried to do that, getting the economy back on track after what went on with inflation now down 2%. We're slowly getting the debt down. The cost of living hopefully is improving. That is not easy. So it is easy to shout from the sidelines and say, a bit like Stadler in the Muppet Show, to say it's a terrible show.
Isn't the real problem, Robert, for the Tories? People aren't listening. They've been in power for 14 years. You can say anything you like. We're going to do this. We're going to bring in a form of national service. All these rather interesting ideas. They say you had time to do it, you didn't. But isn't the fact is they've just switched off. They've made their mind up. It's time for a change.
Well, we'll see on the election day. And as I was quite straight with you, things are not looking great everywhere. But I'm not someone who hands up the white flag. No. I think we should fight for every single last vote till 10 o'clock on July the 4th. And I genuinely believe that when people go in and have to make that decision about who's going to sort out the economy, who's going to cut their taxes, who's going to sort out the cost of living, I think that more people, not everyone, but more people will come back to the
2 weeks today. That's all we got. 2 weeks today.
I'm sure
Keir Starmer's Ming Vase has got to be held very carefully in the next 2 weeks.
Well, I think that this Tory wipeout is just amazing, and I think it's more than the Ming Vase, right? I mean, I just think that it's not that Labour's had the most amazing election campaign. There's been the whole Diane Abbott problem. But then the Tories, there's D-Day. I mean, you just think how many things. And now we have this betting thing. And all of it is about I think you're right, Andrew, that people have stopped listening.
I think so.
I was talking to Charlie Rowley, who is a former advisor who was on this morning, and I don't even know what the Tories are saying about housing, and that's what their thing is today. But I think they've stopped listening. But I do think that there's. That everybody stopped listening to everything. That's what worries me.
There's a sort of lack of there's a lack of ideology from the main two parties for me. And what I mean by that is, Keir Starmer came out and said he was a socialist. He said, yes, I am a socialist, just recently. I'm quite clear on what he stands for. Still not sure what the ideology is of the Conservatives.
What the Conservatives have made very clear is that this election, that we're going to cut taxes. They had to increase taxes after.
Yeah, but that's not a principle. That's just a policy.
No, it is. It's the moral basis of most people who join the Conservative Party.
We've got a massive tax burden, so it doesn't ring true.
Yeah, no, but they're kind of cut national insurance by £900 and they cut pensioners' tax. They've said
Robert,
there'll be more
how are they
taxes
going to pay for it?
Well, they've set out everything through tax avoidance, through non-doms and so on, and welfare, saving money from welfare.
Yeah,
and
that's what people say every time.
Conservatives want to cut taxes by £900 for working people. Are you saying, as a Labour Party, that you don't want to cut taxes for working people? You're going to raise taxes. You're going to raise council tax.
No, we're not.
No, you will. You'll raise.
Well, you're not going to.
You will raise
insurance cut that they've got in the manifesto.
Yeah.
The Labour won't agree to have.
They've said they're against that.
Labour is not.
You're going to
raise taxes.
Raise pension taxes. You'll raise pensions as you've always done. Gordon Brown did it, and people will be worse off under Labour.
No, I think that's not true. But the other thing that's really important is public services. I mean, we have got to do something. It's not just the NHS.
Well, how are you going to do it? Because it's all predicated on achieving growth in the economy. But how are you going to achieve the growth in the economy if you're not going to cut taxes and kick-start the economy? How are you going to achieve this growth?
But one of the ways is that a lot of companies have stopped investing because they don't have stability in Britain. So that's the first thing, is that a lot of companies.
Oh, a Labour government's going to mean they're all going to rush to invest.
Well, there will be people rushing to invest. Right. Yeah, there will be. Because the thing about Rachel Reeves. I mean, you might have a prejudice against Labour, but the thing about Rachel Reeves is she has not moved from the day she became Shadow Chancellor about what she intends to do. And I can tell you this, every person on the front bench in Labour knows that she is immovable.
But what I find a bit strange about Rachel Reeves is that she still appears to be pandering to the massive corporations. There's nothing for, it seems to me, in the manifestos of Conservatives or Labour, for small businesses.
Well,
business rates, VAT, capital gains tax. This is the stuff that will matter to those people.
They have said they're going to reform business rates, but she's been saying that for 2 or 3 years, and we still don't know what the alternative is, Robert.
Yeah, but we have cut taxes for businesses over the years, quite substantial cuts for small and big businesses.
Tell that to 80 pubs a month that are closing.
Well, we've done a lot for pubs, you know, keeping, for example, alcohol tax as low as possible. Fuel duty, which I campaigned for all my life. We cut fuel duty, one of the biggest impacts on the cost of living. We cut that by 5p, frozen it every year since I've been an MP. It was my big campaign on the cost.
It's down to you
on the cost of living. No, so you know, and
you're going. So who's going to be doing it then?
And Rishi cut it by 5p, and you know, before the Conservatives came in, fuel duty went up every single budget. So the Conservatives have done things to help with small business. Now we can argue about the lockdown, and I probably have some sympathy with your views
you and I
on
have
it.
a little bit of.
But I campaigned against school closures. But the fact is, it happened. We spent £450 billion. We've got huge amounts of debt. We had to spend £100 billion helping people with the cost of living and energy bills. It's inevitable that things are difficult. It's inevitable that taxes had to go up in the short term. But now the economy is back on track, thanks to the work the government have done, thanks to inflation going 2%, the government are now reducing taxes again.
But when I say about ideology, and I know what you're saying about the reform contract being sort of slightly utopian in some ways, they might say, this is what we aim for. One of the things in there is 75% of food provided by local, utility... NHS, the big public services in this country, 75% of the food provided should be bought from British suppliers. Quite like that. I understand the ideology. I understand the principle underneath that. Labour won't say that. Conservatives won't say that.
Because it's nearly impossible to do that. The thing is, it's a great idea.
It
right?
is.
It's a great idea. But why doesn't the NHS do it? Because there's a lot of food that isn't provided in Britain.
Because no one's trying hard enough to buy it from China, and it comes across in a plastic box, and it's awful.
And that's the problem. But if you talk about ideology, I mean, one of the big divides is actually public services, and we have to do something about public services. And it's not just about the NHS and education. I mean, our court system is completely jam-packed. People can wait literally years for their cases to be heard. I mean, local government, they talk about potholes. I mean, local government almost has so little money, and that's the problem. Is that. And always, the thing about the British people is what they want Scandinavian public services and North American tax rates. And somehow we do expect proper public services.
Well, I think you'll disappoint on the NHS in particular, because you ain't going to...
It just seems to be the solution. Labour's solution to the NHS is just more money, more money. Let's not be creative. Let's not look at other countries to find out with a different model. It's already mainly privatised anyway. I mean, and the contracts within the NHS, which are given out to multiple private businesses, it's just... Nobody dared to have that conversation, though, do they, Robert?
Well, I think we have spent record money on the NHS, and some things go well, some things don't. I definitely think that what should happen is there should be some kind of Royal Commission where we look at alternative models. Not for profit, absolutely not for profit. I genuinely believe it should be free. But we have to, you know, in some countries, take Israel, for example, they have a social insurance scheme. It's not for profit. And you can choose a different number of insurance schemes to belong to. France, I think, has a similar scheme. So we need to look at different models, but we've got to get cross-party consensus, because it can't just continue in the way that it is.
Sure. But the real cross-party consensus we need is social care.
Okay, yeah, and there's been not much said about that at all in the election campaign. Right, we have to move on. We'll see you later, Scarlett and Robert. Still to come, Just Stop Oil struck again, twice in 24 hours. They've even attacked the ancient monument down at Stonehenge. Do they have no shame? Are they completely stupid?
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
Theatres and drama schools are being offered plus-size inclusivity training. Come on, seriously, is this really a thing? In order to tackle fat phobia, to apparently make the theatre more inclusive for bigger bodies, a lady called Ruth Ann Phillips, who is a plus-size theatre director, she's behind the drive. Now, apparently, her own research, so it's not exactly independent, showed that 9 out of 10 respondents should have training on size inclusion. Ruth is also the co-founder of Inclusion Collective, which is an organisation that provides training in creative well-being, body positivity and inclusive movement. Her website contains resources on fat activism, advocacy for the rights and dignity of fat people, combating discrimination, and the body-conscious scale. This is actually about health. Ruth is conflating the two. Professor Carol Sikora, a consultant oncologist, said normalising obesity has become fashionable in advertising and the media, simply to sell stuff. But it's got nothing to do with celebrating diversity. Nobody needs to be fat. It's like encouraging risky behaviours such as smoking, driving after a booze up, or lying like a lobster on the beach in the sun. A balanced diet and lots of exercise are the cornerstones of a healthy lifestyle. He went on to say, how can anybody possibly justify these projects? Plus size, inclusivity, training. Please bring back common sense. Well, exactly. I'm for equal opportunity and for giving people credit based on merit and what they bring to the table, even if it is food. Only joking. That's where the way to my heart is through my gut. I'm looking for a man that can cook. But in truth, being obese can be dangerous. And whilst I absolutely agree you should love what God gave you, obesity is the biggest killer and costs the health service a fortune. People come in all shapes and sizes, and it's a wonderful thing. But to conflate body positivity with obesity is very dangerous.
The People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's 10:26. Just Stop Oil have struck again. 2 activists have been arrested. Good. After they broke into a private airfield in Stansted to vandalise several planes as they demand an end to fossil fuels by 2030.
And yesterday they really excelled themselves when they sprayed the historic monument at Stonehenge in orange powdered paint just a day before the celebrations begin to mark the summer solstice. This is a 5,000-year-old landmark. They have no shame.
So let's speak to our South West of England reporter, Jeff Moody. Good morning, Jeff. You're down there at Stonehenge, are you? Are the stones still orange? Like, does it just wash off, this paint?
No is the answer to both those questions. No, there's no paint left there now. English Heritage said this morning that they have managed to get rid of all of the paint. They've used these special hand blasters throughout the night. But Just Stop Oil said, look, don't worry about this. As soon as there's any rain, it'll wash off. But that actually is the worst thing that could happen. If we'd have had any rain, said English Heritage, the damage would have been much more severe because this paint was mixed with corn flour. And anyone that uses corn flour in cooking, what do you do when you add water to corn flour? The corn flour gets very thick and sticky. So actually, rain would have been exactly the worst thing that could happen. So they've been working throughout the night to, luckily there's no rain forecast, but just to make sure that all of the damage is done and gone before there's been any rain. Well, there's been 2 arrests, say Wiltshire Police, as we know, a 21-year-old girl and a 73-year-old man. And we've had condemnation, as we know, from Rishi Sunak, from Keir Starmer too. Well, you'll see behind me that there's plenty going on at Stonehenge at the moment. There's lots of people viewing. It's still open to the public, and there are several marquees around because, of course, tonight is the summer solstice. That's when around 5,000 people will be heading to Stonehenge to watch the sun set, and then they'll be staying all night and then watching the sun get up in the morning. But, of course, there's been a second attack, as you said earlier, at Stansted Airport, where 2 protesters have been spray painting a couple of private private jets in the same place where Taylor Swift has parked her private jet. Just Stop Oil say, look, they've always said that what they want is for no new oil and gas licences. Well, the Labour Party has said they don't have any intention of issuing any of these new licences. So Just Stop Oil have changed their modus operandi in a way. They've changed their goal. They're now saying, look, we recognise that an incoming Labour government, if that's about what's about to happen, won't renew those licences. We're pleased about that, but they're now saying they want an incoming government to go further. They want an incoming government to phase out all use of gas and oil, all use by 2030, which isn't very long at all.
No.
Of course they have.
Thanks.
And Jeff, when we talk to you later in the programme, can you find us a druid, please? Andrew wants you to talk to a druid.
I'm fascinated by
the druids don't tend to arrive until later on. I know, that's a shame. They should be all here about 7 or 8 this evening.
It's a great
But
pagan...
I'll see whether there's one lurking in the fields.
Yeah, see if you can, Jeff. It's a great pagan festival, and I'd like them to explain why and why it's so significant. Really interesting. Jeff, always good to talk to you. Yeah.
Right, that's Jeff Moody, off to hunt a druid.
Yeah, exactly. Pharmacies across Britain are going to turn their lights down or even off in protest over a pay dispute. They won't go on strike. Junior doctors, take note.
That and much more after your morning's news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It's just after 10:30. Leading the news this hour, it has been revealed that a Conservative candidate facing a potential investigation into allegations of election betting is married to the Tories' campaign director. Labour says the claims against Laura Saunders seriously chip away at trust and confidence in the government. Well, it comes after Craig Williams admitted to making a huge error of judgment when he placed a bet on when the general election would take place. He was previously a parliamentary aide to Rishi Sunak. And a member of the Prime Minister's protection team was also arrested last night amid similar allegations. It's being described as a key day in the major search operation for missing British teenager Jay Slater. The 19-year-old was attending a music festival in Tenerife when he went missing and hasn't been seen now since Monday. The Bank of England will hold its latest decision on the interest rate this lunchtime. Although inflation's fallen back to its target level, the rate is expected to be held at 5.25%. And another poll is forecasting bad news for Rishi Sunak. YouGov predicting the Conservatives could end up winning the lowest number of seats in the party's history. The projection, if voters were heading to the polls now, suggests a 200-seat Labour majority and big gains for the Lib Dems, but a drop for the SNP. And as we've been hearing, 2 Just Stop Oil activists have been arrested on suspicion of criminal damage after private jets at Stansted were sprayed with orange paint. The planes were targeted near to where Taylor Swift's jet landed earlier this morning. Police, though, have now confirmed the singer wasn't there at the time. And thousands of people are expected to arrive at Stonehenge later to celebrate the summer solstice. The ancient monument is still open after just 2 Just Stop Oil protesters were arrested yesterday for throwing orange powder paint over the stones. English Heritage says the landmark suffered no visible damage. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. Your next update at 11 o'clock. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And let's take a quick look at the markets this morning. The pound will buy you $1.2702 and €1.1847. The price of gold, £1,837.74 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 this hour is at 8,221 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
The use of high-strength nicotine vapes has seen a 10-fold rise, predominantly amongst young people. Shouldn't we be banning these devices completely unless on prescription? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Armagh, the A25 is closed in both directions along Monaghan Street in Newry for an investigation causing delays. In Northamptonshire, Weedon Road is closed into and out of Northampton off junction 16 of the M1 between the junction with Upton Valley Way North and the Sixfields roundabout for an investigation. On the M1 in Bedfordshire, the outside lane's closed southbound where there's an accident just before junction 11A. The A5 north of Dunstable is taking around 20 minutes in 3 miles of queues. In Hertfordshire, the A405 is blocked northbound along the North Orbital Road from Greenwood Park roundabout and Park Street roundabout in St Albans causing queues. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues onto the M25 because of roadworks, and in West Sussex, the A27 is partly blocked by an accident near the Lions Farm Retail Park in Worthing. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
The Princess of Wales has said she's excited by a new report on prioritising early childhood, a cause, as we know, that she's closely associated with.
Yes, the task force findings claim that the UK could reap £45.5 billion in economic benefits if firms prioritise early childhood.
Well, let's talk about this now with our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Good morning, Cameron.
Good morning.
I suppose it's characteristically Catherine, isn't it, to say she doesn't want to distract from this report by sort of people talking about her health. But we should start probably by saying she said she's not feeling well enough to come and talk about this in public, but sort of saying she's watching it, keeping a close eye from behind closed doors.
Yeah, absolutely. This should not be seen as a return to work by the Princess of Wales, but I have been told she's A, read the report and B, been briefed on it. But this all stems really from her work when she started being a working member of the royal family, where she was working closely with people suffering from addiction, mental health problems. And what she found is all of these issues tend to stem from a poor start in life, so the first 5 years of a child's life. So in January 2023, she set up Shaping Us, this awareness campaign for the early years. 2 months later, she convened the Business Task Force, so 8 members of big businesses across the UK, and over a generation, that could add, as they claim, more than £40 billion to the UK economy each year. We spoke to Peter Grigg yesterday. He's the chair of Home Starts UK, a charity which supports young families. Let's hear what he said about the Princess's role in this.
She's been a real driving force behind the report and everything it's done. And when we've spent time with the Royal Foundation, what it does, it reminds everyone that this is really important work and early childhood matters, that more businesses should get involved, that more charities are out there for people who want to do more to support families and children. So it's been a wonderful experience.
The People's Channel.
Now, pharmacies across Britain are staging a day of action by turning off their lights in an emergency protest over government pay.
Well, join us to explain this is Thorin Govind, who's a pharmacist and health expert and is a friend of this programme. Morning to you, Thorin. Just explain, first of all, the deal with the government. You are often prescribing drugs, I think, at a financial loss to your business.
Yes, so pharmacies are, in simple terms, it's very complicated, but we purchase the drugs and then we get paid by the government after they are purchased. So they are not paying the amount that it's actually costing for us to get the drugs into the pharmacies. So pharmacies are experiencing severe financial problems, and there are actually pharmacies which are closing. So we've got in England, the lowest number of pharmacies that we've had since 2015. And funding has been cut in real terms by 40% since 2015. And it's impacting patients because, to me, most people are about a 20-minute walk away from their nearest pharmacy. But the impact of what's been happening means that people are having to go further to access their pharmacy. And we know that in deprived communities where the need is actually higher, and they've seen the biggest decline. So more than 1 in 10 pharmacies have been lost in the poorest 20% of areas in the last 6 years.
There's an irony, isn't there, Thorin? This is happening at a time when the government is putting pressure on the pharmacies to do more and more to take over the work of GPs because so often people can't get to see a GP. So they're asking you to do more, but they're taking money away from you at the same time.
Absolutely. And really, lots of pharmacists are protesting today, and pharmacy teams by, we're not closing. This is not a strike. this is a symbolic protest to say, look, if you don't look at what's going on here, people are wearing black. Some pharmacies are turning out the lights in the morning, for example. We've got petitions going on across the country. But the very fact that pharmacists, who I have to say, we're not a bunch who get up and protest that often. We don't like conflict. We like getting on with what we do, and we like serving our local communities. The fact that pharmacists have felt pushed to this extent, to feel that they've had to go to these lengths to actually explain to the public and also to the government. And this is election time, so I want to know what the government and what parties are going to be doing for pharmacy, and also the medicine shortages that we've spoken about before. Because it's just an untenable situation.
It is. Thorin, just explain to us again, because I think this is what is most baffling to people. You're buying the drugs from the pharmaceutical companies. You then submit an invoice effectively to the government to say, this is what we've spent on drugs, everything from paracetamol to diabetics to statins to HRT medication. And the government are now saying, oh, well, I'm sorry, I know that's cost you £10,000, but we're only going to give you £6,000, so you have to make a loss. If that's what's happening, has it always worked that way, or what's changed?
It's got worse due to these funding cuts that we've experienced. It is due to the cost of medicines, but ultimately it's also down to the package of funding that the contract it offers for pharmacies, which hasn't kept pace with inflation. And also there's business rates that community pharmacy owners are also having to deal with. So if you think about all the pressures on the high street at the moment, and I mean, I walk down the local high street and it's closed. Not many shops still there, are there?
No.
But this is not an ordinary item. These are not, clothes. This is vital medication for some people who can't get in a car and access healthcare. People need to be able to walk to their local pharmacy. This is why so many patients are suffering because of this. There's absolutely no doubt about it. And we've had some pharmacies reduce their opening hours because they can't afford to keep the doors open. And we have seen those closures. So unless something drastic is done, we will continue to see closures. And to me, that is a patient safety risk.
What are Labour saying they will do to help pharmacies? Are you hearing anything positive from them?
Well, all the main parties seem to have addressed pharmacy in some context. I think some of the interesting facts that some of the parties come across is this independent prescribing, so how we can make better use of pharmacists. We've heard the Conservatives talking about pharmacy first, which is that 7 common conditions which you can access care for in a community pharmacy. But again, this is all more work, but very little about how they're actually going to fund it. We can talk about how fantastic it would be for pharmacies to do more, and we are capable of doing more. But we are overstretched with the funds that we have at the moment. And it is patients who are going to see the brunt of this. That's why you walk in at the moment and you'll probably see a queue to talk to your pharmacist, for example, because we've also got staff. Staff don't want to work in a community pharmacy environment where it's quite stressful. And I'm sure you can work elsewhere for better pay, to be honest.
OK.
All right, Thorin. Well, good luck with your protest. That's Thorin Gubbin, pharmacist and health expert. And interesting that they're not choosing to go on strike in the way junior doctors are planning to go on strike next week.
I love pharmacists.
Yeah.
It's my first port of call. Sue at Busby's in Chiswick. I even go in there and I buy some of my beauty stuff, moisturisers and things, and suntan lotions, and it costs me more than if I went to Amazon and bought it. But I want to do everything to keep those little pharmacies going.
Terrific.
We need to support them. We really do. Right, let's see what you've been saying at home. Stonehenge, says Peter, was never anything to do with Druids. It's not a Druid monument, says Peter. That's aimed at you, that, Andrew. Apparently, it's nothing to do with Druids, Stonehenge. I'm sure it is.
Well,
isn't it?
Well, we'll find out, because we've set our very fine correspondent down there a task. Find us a Druid. Maybe he'll dress up as one. Isn't Ken Barlow from Coronation Street a Druid? I think he is. Get him on the phone.
What's his name?
Get him on the phone. Bill Roach.
Bill Roach, thank you.
I think he's a Druid.
On vaping, she says, I stopped smoking and started vaping 8 years ago. I'm 55 and I like the fruit flavours. Just leave people alone, Bev. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean it should be banned. Be careful what you wish for, because you'd be long, and then I think the message has gone. But, Alison, I don't like banning anything. I really don't. But I think maybe we should just have that the age that you can buy vapes has to be older, because older than 18. I would say maybe you have to be, I don't know, 25. Look, I haven't really thought this through, I can't lie. But I don't like banning anything, but what I do see is teenagers and youngsters and early 20s. They are vaping so much.
Yeah.
Not just doing it as an aid to stop smoking, they are addicted.
And we thought vapes were great to get people off fags.
And they were, and they are for that reason.
But they should be prescription. We've got to go to the break. But so up next, of course, we are talking about young people going for those high-strength vapes. And we're going to talk to someone from the vaping industry who's, of course, going to tell us there's nothing to worry about at all. Stay tuned. You're on Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Another dry and fine day for many of us. Plenty of warm sunshine, but it is a little bit cloudier in the north and west. Further wet weather is going to arrive here later. For the time being, just a risk of some drizzly rain for the likes of Northern Ireland, far southwest of Scotland, perhaps moving into the far north of Scotland later on today. Elsewhere though, dry and bright, plenty of sunshine. Maybe a little bit hazy for some of us. We've still got the remnants of a weather front for some central areas of the UK, but it's going to be feeling warm in that June sunshine. Temperatures approaching the mid-20s for southeastern areas and even across central areas of England as well. So high UV levels, and it is in fact the summer solstice today, so the sun won't be setting till very late. We've got 19 hours of sunlight or daylight across Lerwick today, and somewhere between 19 and 16 hours across the UK. So plenty of sunshine, or time to enjoy the sunshine through today, and it will be a fairly bright end to the day later on today. It's potentially still a little bit more cloud around across Wales and up towards the Humber as well. A risk of some rain, but I think for most of us it's going to be very much a dry day. However, through this evening, as I said, it will turn a bit wetter across the far north or west of Scotland and into Northern Ireland. That's a weather front approaching from the northwest. It's not going to make great progress inland, but it will push into parts of central Scotland later on in the night, bringing cloudier skies up for many western areas. So a little bit milder in the west, still fairly fresh though to start the day across eastern areas, but another bright start. There could be some mist and fog around very first thing, but the sunrise is rising around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so it should clear quite quickly or by the time you are up and about. So through the rest of Friday, a little bit more in the way of cloud compared to Thursday, but still fairly warm in the sunshine, particularly across the south and east, with potentially some wet weather arriving later on in the west. See you later. Bye-bye.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, this is pretty disturbing. The use of high-strength nicotine vapes has risen tenfold in 3 years.
Researchers from University College London found that there had been a significant increase in the proportion of vapers using e-cigarettes containing the maximum legal amount of nicotine.
Well, it's a bit worrying, isn't it? So let's talk now to the director of the UK Vaping Industry Association, John Dunn, who's no stranger to this programme. John Dunn, good morning to you.
Good morning.
The most worrying part of this research is that it is young people who are using the higher tobacco-led vapes, 18 to 24-year-olds, the worst group possible to get hooked on these vapes.
Well, first of all, the last time I checked, an 18 to 24-year-old was an adult in this country, but I must have been mistaken. But, you know, if that's what you're taking out of this research, that's quite strange, because Most of what they're talking about in this research is the fact that vapes are the most effective way that adults quit smoking in this country, that the misconception that, nicotine is a massive problem in itself is wrong. It is addictive, but it's not the cause of the major harms of smoking, as they point out here. And then also talking about, taxing these products at a higher rate is going to send people either to the wrong nicotine strength or perhaps continue to smoke as well. But there's lots of other things that we can do to make sure that young people don't get these products. And one of the things that we've talked about many times in this program, but for some reason the government is blind to this, is the fact that they should be licensed. There needs to be more effective enforcement of the current laws that we have, because it's against the law for anybody under the age of 18 to buy these products. And that's what we really need to enforce.
Let's talk about the case of Kyla Blight. John, she's 17 years old. She was rushed to hospital a couple of years ago. She had a collapsed lung linked to 4,000 puffs a week on vape. So that is the equivalent of 400 cigarettes. She needed a 5.5-hour operation to remove part of her lung that was blistered. Now, you might think that's funny, but a teenager wouldn't routinely smoke 400 cigarettes in a week. And the pernicious aspect of these vapes is that you can consume that amount. Your parents can barely smell it. The teachers aren't going to know if you've been doing it. It's in your pocket. Justify that as a product that is available for the public.
First of all, you've actually got to read that article fully. That young person had diagnosed plebs, which apparently is extremely not popular, the word I'm looking for. Common in young people that are very thin. She was diagnosed with those, and the pleb burst. That's what caused this issue.
So you think that had nothing to do with the fact that she was smoking the equivalent of 400 cigarettes a week?
Well, first of all, she wasn't doing that. This trying to equate nicotine strengths in a vape to cigarettes is all wrong, right? There is no generic cigarette. So the nicotine strength of the cigarette ranges from 7 to 24 milligrams per cigarette. So it's very difficult to equate a vaping device with the amount of nicotine in it to cigarettes and the amount of cigarettes. The second thing is that nicotine is absorbed in a different way through a cigarette, which is highly effective at delivering nicotine, and vape. So saying she smoked the equivalent of 400 cigarettes is incorrect. But
it is possible. It is possible, John, to smoke the equivalent of 400 cigarettes, and you won't have an adult in your life that even really knows you're doing it.
If you were smoking 400 cigarettes, I can guarantee you, A, you would have a massive head rush and probably getting sick all over the place. Your body rejects that. It's the same way when you drink too much alcohol. You get a hangover, you get sick. Your body will only absorb the amount of nicotine that it wants. If you try and go over that, it is going to have adverse effects. And nobody is saying here that vaping is 100% safe, and absolutely, we should be keeping young people away from these products. And this is why we want fines of £10,000 for any store selling these products to anybody under the age of 18.
But why do you need these high-strength vapes in the first place, John?
Because it's very simple, and even the research talks about it itself. When a smoker is moving away from cigarettes, their body is used to consuming a certain amount of nicotine. It has to maintain that same amount of nicotine to keep the cravings at bay. If they use a lower strength nicotine, they end up vaping far more vapes than they would if it was a higher strength. Now, we must also remember that the UK and the EU are one of the few countries in the world that have a maximum strength of 20 milligrams. Before the TPD, the average strength of nicotine in this country was 36 milligrams in vaping products. So this idea that having more nicotine in the device makes it more addictive or more dangerous is incorrect. What we do know is that some of the vapes that are on the market, like the 50 milligram vapes that are produced for other markets, are not tested here by the MHRA. So they could contain things that we don't know. That's where the major concern for us is.
We're only just learning. These are a relatively new product. We're only just, as was the way with cigarettes, who were traditionally recommended by doctors when they first emerged onto the market, We are having the same journey now with vapes, aren't we? Findings from a 2024 Journal of Allergy and Clinical Immunology showing how bad they are for your immune system as well, that they affect your neutrophils, which is part of the blood that fights infection. It's going to become increasingly difficult for you, John, to justify these products.
Well, absolutely not, because if you take it compared to smoking, these products are far less harmful. Nobody's saying that they're 100% safe. Nobody anywhere is saying that. But if you smoke, these products are A, far more effective than any other method available and far safer for you to use. But if you don't smoke and don't vape, you shouldn't be using these products in the first place.
Well, OK, John, thank you. I admire the fact that you come on here and put a good big defence of these products. And for adults who are trying to quit smoking, I get it, but that's not...
He's admitted they're not 100% safe.
And that's not what they're doing. Right, don't go anywhere. We're going to be talking to a couple of D-Day, a D-Day veteran and a younger veteran as well in just a moment. Don't go anywhere.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Another dry and fine day for many of us. Plenty of warm sunshine, but it is a little bit cloudier in the north and west. Further wet weather is going to arrive here later. For the time being, just a risk of some drizzly rain for the likes of Northern Ireland, far southwest of Scotland, perhaps moving into the far north of Scotland later on today. Elsewhere, though, dry and bright, plenty of sunshine. Maybe a little bit hazy for some of us. We've still got the remnants of a weather front for some central areas of the UK, but it's going to be feeling warm in that June sunshine. Temperatures approaching the mid-20s for southeastern areas and even across central areas of England as well. So high UV levels, and it is in fact the summer solstice today, so the sun won't be setting till very late. We've got 19 hours of sunlight or daylight across Lerwick today, and somewhere between 19 and 16 hours across the UK. So plenty of sunshine, or time to enjoy the sunshine through today, and it will be a fairly bright end to the day later on today. There's potentially still a little bit more cloud around across Wales and up towards the Humber as well. A risk of some rain, but I think for most of us it's going to be very much a dry day. However, through this evening, as I said, it will turn a bit wetter across the far north or west of Scotland and into Northern Ireland. That's a weather front approaching from the northwest. It's not going to make great progress inland, but it will push into parts of central Scotland later on in the night, bringing cloudier skies up for many western areas. So a little bit milder in the west, still fairly fresh though to start the day across eastern areas, but another bright start. There could be some mist and fog around very first thing, but the sunrise is rising around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, so it should clear quite quickly or by the time you are up and about. So through the rest of Friday, a little bit more in the way of cloud compared to Thursday, but still fairly warm in the sunshine, particularly across the south and east, with potentially some wet weather arriving later on in the west. See you later. Bye-bye.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss out on your chance to win our Summer Spectacular. And have we got a prize for you? First, there's a totally tax-free £15,000 in cash to make your summer spectacular. Spend that extra cash however you like. You'll also win a brand new iPhone, Apple AirPods, and if that wasn't enough, a £500 voucher to spend at your favourite UK attraction, so you can enjoy amazing days out this year. For another chance to win the iPhone, treats and £15,000 cash, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can also enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB06 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 28th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, and we are Britain's election channel.
This vote may seem to be about the politicians in the media, but actually it's about you.
And we won't forget that.
Join us up and down the country as we follow every moment together.
More than ever, it's important to hear
all sides
as you make your decision ahead of polling day.
We're here for you.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's election channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
AM on Wednesday, the 20th of June. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very good morning to you. So, this missing teen in Tenerife, the mother of 19-year-old Jay Slater, says that she's in a living nightmare after he went missing on Monday.
Just Stop Oil have defaced jets now. 2 activists have been arrested after they broke into Stansted Airfield to vandalise multiple planes this morning.
And the Prince of Wales will be in Frankfurt to support England in tonight's clash with Denmark in the Euros.
And what a thrill for us. A D-Day veteran speaks out. We're joined in the studio by 99-year-old war hero Les Underwood. He's not sure he'd fight again for this country as it is today. We're looking forward to talking to him.
We're reading your messages this morning, gbnews.com/your say. First, though, the very latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Bev, Andrew, thank you very much. Good morning to you. It's 1 minute past 11. The top story from the newsroom this morning, and it has emerged that one of the Conservative candidates being considered for investigation over claims of betting on the date of the election is married to the party's director of campaigning. Laura Saunders is the second Conservative member facing allegations, and that follows parliamentary aide Craig Williams last week. And separately, an officer responsible for Rishi Sunak's protection has been arrested over the same issue. A friend of the missing British teenager Jay Slater says she fears that she's been fobbed off by police in Tenerife after reporting his disappearance. The 19-year-old from Lancashire hasn't been seen for 3 days now, when he told his friend he didn't know where he was and that he had cut his leg. Despite his mobile phone being on just 1% battery, he managed to send a photo of his location. His mother has now joined a team of mountain rescuers and the local police on the island searching for Jay Slater, which has now entered its 3rd day. Michael Gove says the Tories are still capable of pulling off poll-defying election victory. That's despite forecasts of a Labour landslide. YouGov data suggests the Conservatives will slump to their lowest number of seats ever, while Labour could win a 200-seat advantage. It's also predicting significant gains for the Liberal Democrats, with them winning 67 seats. That's 6 times their result in 2019. But Community Secretary Michael Gove told GB News this morning the race isn't over yet.
I want to make, and am making whenever I can, that strong case, and certainly when I am with Conservative candidates out in the field, people are responding to the case that they are making. So I feel a sense of optimism about that. But at the same time, there are these opinion polls, and you entirely understandably ask me about them. And so my point is, well, I'm not convinced they're right. I really think it is possible that we can do significantly better than these polls indicate. But in fairness, if you ask me a fair question about them, I've got to say, well, if they are accurate, then I fear the consequences.
And housing is at the centre of the Conservative Party's election campaigning today. The Prime Minister says that he's the only leader who will help first-time buyers. He pointed to the Conservatives' plan to abolish stamp duty on properties worth up to £425,000. He says that will help young buyers to get on the property ladder. And meanwhile, Labour is also pitching its message to house buyers today. Sir Keir Starmer says voters associate the Conservatives with spiralling mortgage costs following Liz Truss's mini-budget. He says while it may be helping Labour in the polls, there's still work to do.
Polls do not predict the future, and I'm well aware that every single vote has to be earned, and it will only be earned if people put their trust and confidence in Labour. And this is a choice election, a choice between carrying on with the 14 years now we've had of chaos, of division, of failure, and the breach of standards which we're seeing today in relation to this gambling story.
The Bank of England is expected to hold interest rates steady when they announce their latest decision this lunchtime. Most economists believe policymakers will keep the rate at 5.25%. That's despite inflation finally reaching the target of 2% for the first time in 3 years yesterday. As we've heard this morning, 2 Just Stop Oil protesters have been arrested on suspicion of criminal damage after they covered 2 private jets with orange paint. Footage you can see here if you're watching on television that was posted by the group to social media shows demonstrators using their fire extinguishers to cover the plane at Stansted Airport. It had been reported that Taylor Swift had landed at the airport this morning. However, it's now been confirmed by police she was not there at the time of the incident. And thousands of people are expected to arrive at Stonehenge later to celebrate the summer solstice. The ancient ruin is still open despite 2 other Just Stop Oil protesters getting arrested for throwing more orange powder paint over the stones. Our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody is in Salisbury at Stonehenge, where that damage is now being assessed by specialists.
Well, English Heritage has said that they don't think there's any significant damage to the stones, and this morning I've seen some drone footage that does seem to confirm that the stones are pretty much undamaged as things stand. Wiltshire Police are saying that 2 people have been arrested for the incident that happened at around midday yesterday. All of this as the site prepares for the arrival of around 5,000 people that will be descending on Stonehenge this evening for the beginning of the summer solstice.
That's the latest from the newsroom for now. For more, you can sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the code on your screen, or of course go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts. Now though, more from Andrew and Bev.
It's 11:06 with Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner, and this is the highlight of the show for us now.
Highlight my year so far, this possibly.
Yeah, I think so, because earlier this month, of course, we marked the 80th anniversary of the D-Day, as we remember the debt we owe our veterans, and one of those heroes is with us in the studio, Royal Naval Gunner Les Underwood, one of 17 veterans who returned to Normandy on the anniversary, thanks to the help of the taxi charity for military veterans Ambassador Johnny Gallagher, who's raised $135,000 in a week.
Yeah, very impressive.
Thank you, both of you, for coming to see us this morning.
Real treat. Just tell us, first of all, Les, what was it like going back on the 80th anniversary?
On the Normandy?
Yeah.
It's upsetting, because you think of the young boys that was there, all around their 20s. The time I went to on the Normandy thing, I was 28 then. But there was still younger boys than me, because when I went, a lot of the boys in my time all put their ages up.
Right.
They all forged their birth certificates, everything, just to get in,
right,
to follow my brothers.
Yeah.
But I got a consent form first, and my mum said, "You need a bit of discipline, my son." And my dad, who was in the First World War, he got buried alive 3 times.
Gosh.
Wow.
And he got mustard gas. And he died with one lung crushed and the other one melted away by gas. And he used to say to me, "If you get in any fights or anything," which I did, "don't come crying, because men and boys don't cry."
Gosh.
Well, remember that. But that ain't true. Men do cry.
Yeah.
I cry.
Did you cry at D-Day?
I have cried.
Yeah. Did you cry when you went back there?
I cried.
Did you?
Because when you're on board a ship, like we are now, you eat together, you sleep the same place, you go ashore together, your brothers, family together. And then when you see them, they're putting they just put them in a canvas bag, just tip them over the side.
Yeah, it's just
no dignity.
And things, haven't you?
No.
Johnny, why are you involved with the veterans? Because you're not military yourself, are you? But you feel a real strong bond.
Yeah, so my great-granddad was in the Battle of Somme, and my granddad was really close to me, and he was a captain in the army. My great-uncle was in World War II in the submarines. He won 5 medals. And for me, I really grew up with a love of country, sense of duty. And as a young boy, I always thought of joining, but I just had this thing inside me that knew I would be successful in business. And I thought, when I get to a stage, I'm going to give back. And as a young person in my 20s, it makes me sick to see the state of this country. I live in, I'm in London. I see the war statues get vandalised. I just see no love of country. Les talks about unity. Can you imagine 16-year-olds now wanting to join the army?
No. Yeah.
For what? So look...
And then we had that shocking revelation that so many teenagers didn't even know what D-Day was.
Yeah.
No.
How did that make you feel?
Well, if you go to France or Ireland, because they even had me on their television, I didn't know nothing about it. They come up and told me. All the children at school were taught.
Yeah.
I even have cards from them every year, for Christmas.
Yeah.
From 12-year-olds, even 12-year-olds, saying to me, thank you.
Oh, nice.
They've learnt it at school.
Yeah.
Over here...
We don't teach it.
The teenagers today have got, to me, I'm not saying all of them, but a great majority have got no respect for their parents and no respect for elder people. When I was a boy, if I was to get on a bus and cause a bit of noise or anything, if there was an old couple on there, the old fella would say, ease it down, boys. And if they never thought twice of that person, even though he didn't know you, he'd come up and smack you around the ear hole.
Yeah, quite. That would have been my dad. My dad would have done that.
My mum used to. She used to say, well, look, and if I... Don't cry, because if you cry, I'll give you something to cry for. No, you didn't know what way to turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You were a gunner in the Royal Navy.
Yes.
Really dangerous job.
Yes. I went through the gunnery school.
Yeah.
And on the bottom of there, you'll see the DEMS on the front, where it says DEMS.
Yeah.
That's defensive equipment of merchant ships.
Right. Because we've got a photograph here.
Yeah.
Of Les when he was... How old were you, Les, in this photo?
That was about 16 and 3 months old.
Look at what a good-looking boy. Still are good-looking.
I'm going to get you to sign this, Les, before you go.
I will sign it.
Yeah, you need to autograph this for us.
So you went through the gunnery school?
Went through the gunnery school, at Whale Island. They call it Whale Island. And everything there, you double. You don't walk.
Right.
You double. And I went back there a couple of years ago with the taxi. And the lady said, have you ever been here before? I said, obviously, about 1942. She went, so she looked, oh, yes, she said. I said, why are these sailors just walking? She said, all that doubling has stopped. Right. You walk everywhere now.
Right.
This was been, you went in there, and when you come out, it was hard work. But you come out fit, healthy. And when you go in, I think National Health should come back. I think strongly on that.
National Service.
National Service.
National Service,
yeah.
National Service.
Yeah.
Because you go in as a boy and you come out as a man and you learn there's other people better than what you are.
Yeah.
And you learn a lot of discipline.
Yeah.
There was a suggestion recently, wasn't there? Rishi Sunak said we're going to bring back national service.
Well, I think they should. I'm very strong on that because I think some of these young lads need it.
Yeah.
Do you mind me asking, what do you think about the fact Rishi Sunak was at the D-Day commemorations but left early? Were you angry about that?
I didn't know nothing about it until this week.
Oh, really?
I heard it this week when they was talking about the voting and all that, and it was mentioned. I'd never heard nothing about that.
What did you think, Johnny?
I thought it was disrespectful.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, you know, I don't really want to talk politics, but Nigel Farage was a massive supporter of getting the veterans back to the beaches.
He raised money for you, didn't he?
He did. He raised over 50,000. He was our biggest influence. And he actually came to visit them personally on the day. I mean, he went over there. It wasn't a state visit at all, you know, he's off his own back. And I think that man really loves the country, you know. Yeah, that's it. That's it. So
And Les, you're not sure if you'll had your time again.
Well, I'll be honest with you, as this country stands today, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't, because, all respect, we've got no Great Britain anymore. There's no such thing as Great Britain. All the people are being disrespected.
Yeah.
We're letting... I'm not a racist. I'm not a racist. I've got coloured people next door to me, opposite me, 3 houses opposite me. They all come up to my carer and they say, we'll keep eye on him. He's all right.
That's nice. You've got good neighbours.
I've got good neighbours.
Good.
And they are Asian and black.
Yeah, good.
They're as good as gold.
Yeah.
And then you go up the road, you've got our own people causing nothing but trouble and violence.
Yeah, it's very sad.
And
lack of respect for the elderly.
Yeah.
I think, as I said, put them in the service and let them get some what's saying behind them, some discipline.
Yeah.
They don't even respect their own parents.
I know.
Because you have to feel, of course, that those lives that were lost were not lost in vain.
They wasn't, no, because when you think about it, those people that we fought for to save their lives, he was a bad man, Hitler.
Yeah, he was.
There's no doubt about that. He was a cruel... And he had troops that walk into a place and say, for instance, you was husband and wife, they'd say, oh, we're taking her.
Yeah,
I know.
No answering back.
Yeah.
That's the sort of special squad he had.
Brutality.
And, I mean, they're very grateful. When we go to France and Belgium and Holland, they make a tremendous fuss of us.
Quite right, too.
And they're thanking us all the time. They're great people. And it's worth... I would do it again for them.
Yeah.
But when I think of how this country's turned with violence... Not long ago, there was a young girl stabbed a teacher and 3 children in a class.
It's that respect for authority, isn't it? How can people help, Johnny, if they want to donate, support?
Yeah, so, I mean...
Leslie's mates.
Look, the campaign's over now.
Yeah.
You know, what I care about is when I was on the beaches, Les turned around to me and said, Johnny, this is not the country that I fought for. So for me, it's more, I would like, as a 20-year-old, I would like more young people to take an interest and realise why they did fight. You know, they didn't fight for freedom. That was a big thing that I realised when I was there. They never fought for freedom. The definition of freedom, to do what you want without consequence, is not what they fought for. They fought for our values. They fought for our culture. And they fought for us to all have a good way of life. And I think what Les is saying, and when I was with him, is, you know, them values are no longer here. People getting stabbed, murdered. So what I think is that, exactly like you said, I think when you realise the colossal loss of life and you see it with the gravestones, it really makes you sad.
I mean, you see their ages, 17, 18,
16.
16.
And their mothers have wrote something underneath.
Heartbreaking.
And I think, you know, I mean, I was looking at the highlights to get a few thousand views or 10,000 views. A rap video talking about stabbing someone and murdering someone's got 50 million. So I would just like young people to take more of an interest.
There's just finally, I guess, did you get to meet any of the royals when you were in Normandy?
I have. I've been... No, not the royals. No, I have been to Normandy before I met the royals.
Very good.
I even met the President of France.
Very good.
I was drinking a cup of tea like I am now, and someone got me hand. I looked round, and he's on his knees beside me. It was the President of France.
How nice was that?
And he was thanking me. I said, well, there's all these boys here.
Yeah.
Got to thank all them as well.
Well, can we thank you on behalf of
everybody?
GB News viewers.
But they're so appreciative.
Yeah, of course they are.
You know, our boys I don't know. I mean, we've got a mayor of London now. He's crucifying the...
I know. Well,
It feels like it, doesn't it?
I know. Les, it's been a joy to talk to you.
Thank you, Les,
and
so
can
much.
we say,
Thank you.
every GB News viewer and
Thank
listener will
you.
want us to say thank you for what you did.
That's all right, thank you.
And
Thank you for having me
very
anyway.
proud to have you with us today.
And you, Johnny, keep up the
Johnny
amazing
does a lot
work.
of work for us.
He's a great man, isn't he?
He's our Christmas dinner, I think it cost 15,000, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he paid every halfpenny.
Ah, you're a good man. The
You are a
taxi charity
good
is
man.
the best. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Stay with us on Britain's Newsroom on GB News. Plenty more to come.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
98-year-old veteran Ken Cook shared his memories of D-Day at a special event in Harrogate. As a former Green Howards private, Ken was part of an armada of vessels carrying more than 150,000 Allied soldiers to France. And he was just a teenager when his regiment landed on Gold Beach in Normandy.
Everybody was telling us, the officers and the sergeants, corporals, they're telling, get off the beach, lads, quick, because there's some more stuff coming behind us. And they had to get onto the beach as well. All our equipment and tanks and whatever, artillery, they were following up behind us. So we had to get out of the way and get into the countryside and make as much ground as we could on that first day.
Ken survived that harrowing first day, but many didn't. Around 10,000 Allied troops were either killed or injured. But their sacrifice, along with the bravery of those that lived, changed the course of history and resulted in the end of World War II.
Because somebody had to do it, and so we did it. We did our job, and that's it.
Ken is one of the last surviving members of York's Normandy veterans. Part of an ever-dwindling band of brothers who fought on D-Day, he's attending the 80th commemoration in France.
A very emotional occasion this time because there's not many of us left now.
Remembering the fallen, Ken's wish is that long after he's gone, we still never forget those who gave their tomorrow for our today.
The People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, we're still on a high after that interview. Was he not fabulous?
Amazing.
And Les has autographed his photograph for both of us, which I will personally treasure that. And he's from the same part of Dagenham where my mum's family are from.
Is that right?
Yeah, the Becontree estate, the largest council estate, I think, in Europe.
Gosh. Yeah, fantastic. Let us know what you thought of that conversation. Excuse me, gbnews.com/your say. Now, throughout the campaign, the election campaign, of course, we're hearing from voters right across the country to get their thoughts on the big issues. And today we're going to Wales.
So I'm coming at this with a great interest in food, farming and nature. It's an issue that is hugely important to all of us, and the decisions that are made in the next 5 years really are going to have an impact for the next 30 years and beyond. We've heard a lot of talk, and there's often a lot of hubris around food security and how we should spend money on supporting farming. It's particularly relevant here in Mid Wales because it's very rural economy. 90% of Wales is farmed. And while it's true that Wales has devolved decision-making powers through the Senedd for the environment, which also includes agriculture, that doesn't really make the Westminster elections any less important. There's a huge amount that can be signalled in the form of leadership. While there's mention of plans to invest in nature and commitments to nature in most of the main parties' manifestos, none of them really go far enough. If we were to see fewer woodlands, more polluted rivers, less wildlife, possible and probable that fewer people would come here, and that's less income, less diversification opportunities, and that is a degenerative spiral, where we want a regenerative spiral and a restorative, hopeful future.
Well, we've got the panel back with us. Scarlett Maguire, former Labour advisor, and former Tory Minister Robert Halfon in the studio. Can I just say to you first, guys, wasn't he, Les Underwood, unbelievable?
I was watching...
98.
I was watching in the green room, I thought I was going to cry.
Yeah, I know.
And it actually makes you feel any problem you have in life is nothing compared to what these guys have done. It's incredible.
On a naval ship operating a gun, and he signed it when he was 16.
It's incredible.
And he's still got a twinkle in his eye.
And to be able to do that at 99 and come in... I mean, if I'm like that when I'm 70, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I know. But also, Scarlett, Johnny Gallagher as well, young man there in his 20s.
Yeah.
He's done very well in life, in business himself, and worked really hard. He kind of proves the next generation are not a lost cause.
Yeah, no, look...
And he's raised £135,000 for that charity, for the veterans charity.
No, look, I do not think young people are a lost cause. I mean, I think... As ever, I remember when I was young and we were all written off as well.
Do you really remember that?
Yes, Andrew, I do just about. But no, I mean, of course, and there are great young people. I think what we have to... I mean, one of the things I found most moving about listening to the D-Day people was them talking about how they still think of the people they lost that day.
Yeah.
And you just think... I mean, my dad was one of the naval people. And the other thing is that he hardly ever spoke about it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what is, and he never went on about, in my day, you know, I was so brave. And I think they were amazing.
Do you think Les has a point, though, about this lack of respect for authority from young people now? He was saying in the olden days, you know, somebody was noisy on a bus, an adult would say shush and the children would listen to them. Just would never have that now.
They'd get a mouthful of abuse.
Actually, I was on a train and there were 10 people, I guess they were late teenagers, early 20s, who came in with music. And I did really give them hell. And they didn't really take any notice at the end. And I said, the next time you ask me to respect you, just remember that you didn't respect me.
It was interesting, he agreed with Rishi Sunak's plans for national and community service. Because he said that was a good idea. And
yes, although I do wonder whether the definitions of national service of what Les might like differs slightly to Rishi Sunak's one weekend.
Well, it will be some will go into the army and military, and some will do community service.
Don't you think it's the kids who should be going in the army, the ones who won't qualify? Because you've got to be already fit and not overweight and all that to do the military side of it.
Well, I think community service is a really good thing, and I think it's a good policy because I think we need to encourage people. Some will get into the armed forces. Don't forget, you've got cadets, and you don't have to be super fit to go into cadets. Amazing cadet forces across the country. Got loads of amazing cadets in Harlow, you know, RAF, Navy, Army, and so they can do that anyway. But this idea of community service, and that's what he's talking about, is that people having an ethos and values.
Yeah.
Do you think those Just Stop Oil people should do some community service?
Oh, yeah.
Instead of these ridiculous gimmicks?
Yeah, in fact, they should be working, not walking around every day spraying paint on sacred sites.
Yeah, quite.
So that is a site of heritage for the British people, but it's also a religious site for some people, for pagans and those and druids and so on. And just imagine if they went and did it on a mosque or a church, they'd be outraged, like the Regent's Park Mosque.
But what's so awful about it is they actually put people off. They're completely counterproductive.
Yes,
they're supposed to be persuading us all about it. Now, look, I mean, you know, ideologically, I'm on their side, but this is not the way to do it. It is absolutely crazy, and you're putting people off, and you're not making the argument. And how dare they attack Stonehenge?
Well,
how dare they?
How dare they?
Because they want to balance environmentalism on the backs of working people. They don't care because a lot of them are middle class, rich people who are doing it. And they don't care if people in my former constituency of Harlow, they've got to pay more for their boilers, get a car changed or whatever it may be.
And they also
Robert,
don't do that.
We are in the middle of a climate crisis that we do need to do something about.
You don't balance it on the backs of working people,
But they don't
and
do
that's
the
what they want to
homework.
do.
These wretched people, we've heard, if they said, oh, it's all right, when it rains, it'll disappear.
I know.
And apparently would have made it
true.
far worse.
I don't know, but I mean...
Because it was the paint was mixed
But the
with
whole point of what they're
cornflour.
doing is ridiculous, because actually what they do is they make people angry with them instead of making people think, oh, yeah, maybe. And instead you think, what are they doing? And that's why I'm really angry
and they're
with
moving
them.
the goalposts because apparently they want to stop any new... Those cross at the Tories would give new licences in the North Sea.
What's that got to do with Stonehenge?
What's that got to do with Stonehenge? And the Labour Party is saying that they wouldn't renew the licences, but that doesn't matter to them because what they're now saying is all oil and gas use has got to be stopped by 2030. Get real.
Yeah.
Can we talk about acid attacks going up by 75% in 1 year, Robert? This is awful. I hate this story. It really worries me.
Well, it's horrific. It's horrific if you'd imagine just walking home at night and somebody's got acid, and it's, you know, with all the attacks in the past, they disfigure people for life. Absolutely, there needs to be, first of all, it's got to be a #1 priority for the police. And secondly, we're going to have to look in the new parliament, whoever's the government, much tougher. Really, really tough sentencing for anyone who... It should be just completely banned. You shouldn't be carrying this stuff at all around with you. And but it is horrific what is going on and frightening.
And most of them are on people that they know. It's not strangers. So actually, what we've got to do, and it's the same with stalking, with murder, is when a woman goes to the police and says, he's threatened me, we have to take those threats seriously. I mean, because that's what we're talking about. Is the threats go up and up? I mean, that's what we know about.
Yeah.
And then in the end, you know, the woman gets murdered.
This is the failure, though, of people coming here from other countries in cultures in which this has a long tradition of disfiguring women who may be unfaithful, whatever, and this is people coming here and then not realising that we don't do that.
Or not accepting a forced marriage.
I mean, the thing is, Bev, that I think we can't just blame foreigners for violence against women.
There is a cultural issue here.
There is a cultural issue, but actually, as far as violence against women goes, it is what men do to women, and I mean, we've just seen that there's a terrible case in Turkey where a woman was going to leave a British businessman man, and he shot her dead and then shot himself. And
Absolutely.
that is the problem.
I
So
couldn't
it's
agree
not
more.
about culture. It's actually about about women.
It is about women, but the acid attack specifically is something that we did not see routinely in this country, Robert. And I know that's a difficult truth. It is a cultural lack of assimilation into a British way of life.
Well, I think we need to teach... I've always felt we need to teach values in our schools.
Yeah.
Going back to national service, that's what I think is lying behind some of this stuff. But I also think I believe in deterrence, and anyone who does this should be banged away for a very long time. It should be you shouldn't be, even if you carry it around with you in your court, you should face a severe sentence, because that's the only way it's going to stop.
Yeah. Right. OK. Robert Health and Scott Maguire, thank you so much for your time this morning. Right, latest news headlines with Sam Francis now at 11:32.
Bev, Andrew, thank you very much. Good morning to you. It's just after 11:30. The top story this morning. Labour is now calling on the Prime Minister to withdraw his support for two Conservative candidates accused of election betting. Here's what Sir Keir Starmer had to say just moments ago.
This candidate should be suspended. And it's very telling that Rishi Sunak has not already done that. If it was one of my candidates, they'd be gone and their feet would not have touched the floor.
Well, that comes as Laura Saunders and her husband, who's the Conservatives' campaign director, and another candidate, Craig Williams, face investigations by the Gambling Commission. A member of the Prime Minister's protection team was also arrested last night amid similar allegations. Questions remain about the whereabouts of a British teenager who's gone missing while on holiday in Tenerife. A friend of 19-year-old Jay Slater says he rang her while on just 1% battery, saying he didn't know where he was. He was attending a music festival on the Spanish island and hasn't been seen since Monday. Well, we'll soon hear from the Bank of England about its latest decision on interest rates that are expected this lunchtime. Although inflation has fallen back to its target level, the rate is expected to be held at 5.25%. Michael Gove says the Tories are still capable of pulling off poll-defying election victory despite forecasts of a Labour landslide. YouGov predicts the Conservatives could end up winning the lowest number of seats in the party's history. The projection suggests a 200-seat Labour majority and big gains for the Lib Dems, but a drop for the SNP. 2 Just Stop Oil activists have been arrested and now released on bail on suspicion of criminal damage after private jets at Stansted Airport were sprayed with orange paint. The planes were targeted near to where Taylor Swift's jet landed earlier, though police have now confirmed the singer wasn't there at the time of the incident. And thousands of people are expected to arrive at Stonehenge later to celebrate the summer solstice. The ancient monument is still open after 2 other Just Stop Oil protesters were arrested yesterday for throwing orange powder paint over the stones. English Heritage says the landmark, though, suffered no visible damage. That's the latest from the newsroom for now. I'll be back at midday with another update. Until then, you can sign up to GB News Alerts. Just scan the code on your screen or go to our website, gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's another look at the markets. This morning, the pound will buy you $1.2705 and €1.1841. The price of gold, £1,838.61 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 this hour is at 8,220 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
I don't know.
Really kept it.
Right. We're on the telly, Andrew Pearce. Up at noon, every day.
I was just going to say,
every single time.
I'm still on a high after talking to our lovely veteran.
We could do it out. We could do like a bloopers reel of every time you've come back to us in Vision and we're gossiping.
We have treasured signed photographs from Les Underwood.
Yeah, he was lovely, wasn't he?
98
amazing.
young, one of the young ones.
From the very old to the very young, here are Tom and Emily. What's on the show today,
He's
guys?
fantastic, that man.
Wasn't he lovely?
Yes, he
Brilliant.
is.
Humbling.
He is. An inspiration.
It's
An
humbling to
inspiration.
meet them, actually.
No, absolutely.
What are you talking about this afternoon?
My goodness, there's been some news that has just dropped in the last 30 minutes, and that is that the Supreme Court, our good friends at the Supreme Court, have made a landmark ruling that some journalists are saying could prevent oil and gas exploration, any further oil and gas exploration at all in this country. And the reason why is that they have ruled against Surrey County Council for granting a licence for exploration that didn't take into account the future carbon emissions that someone else burning the oil that was extracted might then make. So if everyone has to take that into account
This is a bit
of
like what
anything
happened in
that's
Switzerland, isn't it?
extracted,
yes,
then
the same
suddenly
thing.
you can see how the entire oil and gas sector in this country, which raises tens of billions of pounds in tax revenue...
Who runs this country? Courts or governments?
Well,
It's
that is a
an
good
outrage.
question to ask, Andrew.
It
and I
is
think we'll
an
be putting that to our
outrage.
guests on this because it does seem
Unelected
absolute
judges.
overreach. But is it the fault of the law? You know, Theresa May's Climate Change Act and all
also-
the laws, the net zero targets, they are written into
And
law.
who
so,
set up that
you know, the
wretched
court.
Supreme Court? Tony Blair, another disastrous wrecking of the Constitution.
And yet, you can make the argument there that, as Emily was saying, the courts are just acting within the framework of the law that was passed. The Climate Change Act was passed with no scrutiny whatsoever. The net zero target was passed without even a vote in the House of Commons. Is it just now that we're learning some of the implications from this rushed legislation?
It wasn't thought through. Theresa May just about to go in the House of Lords, carry on with her wrecking. Her record is just unravelled, hasn't it?
Yes.
Everything she's done.
Well, we've also got the Bank of England at midday. Top of the show, they'll be telling us likely that they're holding interest rates as they are, which will come as a disappointment to many people looking to borrow some cash.
Apparently they won't cut it because we're in a general election campaign. If the rates should be cut, they should be cut whether it's an election campaign
Well, exactly.
or not.
They're supposed to be independent,
They are
outside
supposed
of
to be independent.
politics.
Exactly.
A nonsense.
Stupid.
Anyway,
as
you
that.
never know. You never know. They could go down.
They could surprise us. What will be interesting, however, is looking at the makeup of the 9 members of the Monetary Policy Committee. what is the split? Because for the last 2 rounds of decisions on interest rates, there's been a growing dissenting voice saying, actually, these should be cut. So it'll be interesting to see the breakdown, because it could be more people saying cut.
So. OK, Emily and Tom, from midday. For now, though, get your glad rags on. It's what used to be called Ladies' Day at Royal Ascot today.
We're still calling it Ladies' Day.
We're calling it Ladies' Day. What have they called it? Fashion Day or something, isn't it?
Well, apparently...
Ladies, men, and anything in between day.
It's the March of blokery, of course.
Don't go anywhere, this is GB News.
Yeah.
Nana Queer, weekends from 3 p.m.
What about the elections? Because it seems that the King and everything is moving because of it, and we've got a lot of royal engagements and things that happen at this time.
Yes, well, you know, it means that he has to take more time and be at home. He can't go to all the things he wants to do. He's been doing 5 a day, which is probably made Camilla a bit cross. But what they still hope is that they can get the Japanese Emperor and Empress over. That's in July. That they can go to France for the 80th anniversary of the fighting. And he will be able to do 1 or 2 things, and Ascot he's very keen to do. Now, those aren't things that are political in any way. Just want to talk about Harry and Charles's argument, where Harry said he didn't want to stay, he wanted to go to a hotel. And it's come out now that actually King Charles is believed that he was put into, offered St James's, and Princess Anne stays there and Beatrice stays there.
And this was for when Harry came over
when
for
his
his 10th
yeah,
anniversary
exactly. And the policemen are wandering around with guns, and there's no chance of actually there being any problem there. So the fact that he said that it wasn't safe for him was not actually a very sensible thing to say, I don't think.
Well, he went to Nigeria, and that is, in the world ranking, it's ranked as quite a dangerous place.
Yes, one of the dangerous places in the world. But now Harry and Meghan have been invited to go to Ghana.
Oh, God. Well, it's interesting because my parents are from Ghana. I have Ghanaian heritage, and I'm thinking she'll probably then claim there's a percentage that she's Ghanaian as well. I'll be like, hang on a minute, you were Maltese, you're also Nigerian,
and
now you're going to say you're Ghanaian and German.
Yeah.
Come on. Thank you very much.
Squeeze it in.
Yeah, let's get them all in. Angela Levin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. GB News, Britain's election channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
11:41, you're with Britain's Newsroom with GB News, Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Our political reporter Christopher Hope spoke to Michael Gove this morning. Here's what he had to say.
In fact, we're going live. We're going live to Chris Hope because actually he's our political editor, not our political reporter, of course. So we don't want to demote you, Chris. I think you've also been. Have you been talking to that man Keir Starmer too?
No, hello Andrew, hello Bev. No, I'm in West London here with a Conservative battle bus. Okay. My second or third day on it, they all merge into one. But no, I'm with Michael Gove. I have interviewed him for GB News, and that will play out within the next hour. But he's trying to find some degree of comfort from history. He says that if you look back at the Donald Trump victory in 2016, he said that Trump was 11 points on 11% chance of winning the election. 11% in the polls, and then turned it around in 2016. He talked to the eve of poll on that Brexit referendum when Remain were given a 45-55 likelihood of winning, and both were wrong. So he's trying to look to history, the Brexit referendum, the Trump victory in America. He thinks that's the way the Tories can navigate over the next 2 weeks to win. But I've got to tell you, another story is developing this morning, which is just jaw-dropping. It's an emerging betting scandal surrounding the Tory party. Now, we know about Craig Williams. He's obviously admitted to a flutter on the date of the election, the July the 4th date. A second candidate who is also now reportedly involved, Laura Saunders. She's married to somebody called Tony Lee, who no one will have heard of, but he's very important in this campaign. He's the national campaign director. The Tory party has said moments ago that he's now taken a leave of absence because we know that Ms Saunders is being investigated over allegedly placing a bet on the election, and now her husband, who's running the whole campaign, 2 weeks out, they're miles behind the polls, they're facing electoral annihilation. He's now taking a stand back and is for a leave of absence for the time being. So just when you thought it couldn't get any worse for the Tory party, and it is really bad, it gets worse.
Chris, can I just ask you, on a personal level, how does Rishi Sunak seem? Because I can't imagine waking up every morning and feeling that you're in this sort of slow motion car crash, hurtling to political oblivion, and yet you're having to go out in front of the press every day. How is he doing it?
Well, we saw him yesterday in Sizewell C in Suffolk. He's chomping on Twix bars, being quite lively, and he's driving home a message on tax. We're at the stage of the election campaign, Bev, now where
Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The solstice today, and for many, it's a good-looking day. Dry, fine, hazy sunshine and fairly light winds. High pressure is dominating. There is an old weather front that's been sinking south, generating quite a bit of cloud over parts of northern England, North Wales in particular. But I say here, just making the sunshine fairly hazy. A bit more cloud into western Scotland too. Could even be the odd spot of drizzle here and there. But for most places, dry and fine. Some lengthy spells of sunshine for East Anglia and southern counties of England in particular. That's where we'll see the top temperatures, 22, 23, maybe 24 Celsius elsewhere, generally high teens or low 20s, certainly feeling a bit warmer than it has done for most of June so far. Through this evening, not a great deal of change. Cloud just starting to thicken in western Scotland. A little bit more in the way of drizzle just creeping onto the west coast. A bit more cloud across the Northern Isles. Temperatures here struggling in the low teens for much of the day. But across the mainland, we'll get up to 18, 19. Starting to dip away through this evening. But certainly much of southern Scotland, most of Northern Ireland, dry and fine through this evening. And a lovely, pleasant summer's evening across the bulk of England and Wales, with temperatures still in the 20s, even at 6, 7 o'clock this evening. As we go through the night, we will start to see a bit more cloud pushing into western Scotland, start to see more of a change here as we see rain creeping in over the Highlands and the Western Isles, and later in the night the cloud will start to thicken more across Northern Ireland. Most of England, Wales staying dry and clear. Quite a chilly night again across eastern counties of England. Temperatures certainly rural spots down into single digits. Any morning mist and fog will clear pretty rapidly on Friday morning. And another fine day across many central and eastern parts. But further west, we will see a change. More cloud across western Scotland. Some outbreaks of rain here and some showery rain creeping into Wales and certainly Northern Ireland come the afternoon. Many central and eastern parts, though, do stay dry and fine and a touch warmer with temperatures up to 23 or 24.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, it used to be called Ladies' Day at Royal Ascot, but we're going to continue to call it Ladies' Day. Glamorous, of course.
That's right. Attendees will include celebrities and members of the royal family showing off their high fashion outfits. Talking of which, here is our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Oh, Cameron, you look lovely in your top hat.
Thank you very much, Bev. Yes, it used to be called Ladies' Day, now Gold Cup Day, but we're still going to call it Ladies' Day, as you said. And there are so many amazing outfits here today. I've got the official race card in my hand. The King and Queen's horse, Gilded Water, is confirmed to be running in the King George V Stakes a little bit later on. But let's talk about the fashion, because that's what we all love, right? And Frederica Crum, who I'm going to invite to join us now, probably has the biggest hat I've seen so far today. Opera singer and Irish Guards ambassador. Frederica, first of all, talk us through your outfit. What's the inspiration? Where's it from?
Well, obviously, Ladies' Day is a big hat, kind of rule, and it shields me as well beautifully from the sun today, which we're so lucky to have. My outfit is from Margie. My hat is from Victoria Charles headpieces, and I've combined it with beautiful pearls from Coleman Douglas pearls.
I mean, you look amazing, and of course everybody is dressed up to the nines here today. What's the atmosphere like at Royal Ascot so far?
Buzzing. I mean, it's the one time of the year, big social occasion, everybody tries to get in and enjoys, and it's something for everybody. There's the royal enclosure, then you can be somewhere else and just enjoy picnics and wander around. You don't have to book, you can just eat somewhere, or you have your famous picnic in the car parks.
And that's the thing, I suppose one of the main attractions is, of course, the royal family. We're stood right by the parade ring, and the carriages are going to go right past us here later on today. When the royal family do arrive for the royal procession, because you've been here a number of years now, what's the atmosphere like, and what do the public think when they see the carriages? And
I think it is such an important. We have a royal family, not many countries have, and I think it's what makes Britain so special. And they had a very difficult year, and I think for them to show up here and be present for everybody, and everybody else to show their love for them, which I think is a wonderful give and take. It's just beautiful. I mean, we're so proud to have them, and they're just wonderful.
And speaking of a difficult year, of course, we're not expecting the Princess of Wales to attend Ascot. Yeah. She's still undergoing cancer treatment, but she was at Trooping the Colour, and you are the Irish Guards charity ambassador. Of course, it's her regiment, isn't it, the Irish Guards?
She's the colonel of the Irish Guards, and I think the regiment was very moved because she sent a letter on the day when she couldn't attend the Colonel's review, and that was very moving. I mean, you know, she takes her role very serious, but I think the most important role she should take serious right now, and she does, is being a mother and being at home for her children with that little energy that she has at the moment.
And one very quick question, champagne or Pimm's?
Well, I'm a German, so I can get champagne anywhere. It's Pimm's for me, quintessential British.
And speaking of quintessentially British, you've agreed to sing the national anthem for us. Take it away, Frederica.
God save our gracious King, long live our noble King. God save the King, send him victorious, happy and glorious, long to reign over us. God save the King.
Thank you very much, Frederica. Round of applause here from the crowds here at Royal Ascot. The royal procession taking place later this afternoon.
Amazing. Thank you, Cameron. I don't know why I saluted. I felt the need to. I followed your lead there.
He is our Commander-in-Chief, the King, after all. But what a moment. We've had a D-Day veteran and we've sang the national anthem with an opera singer.
That is it from us. Ben Leo and Nana Aquia will be into Britain's newsroom tomorrow. But first of all, here's the weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good morning, welcome to your latest GB News weather update. Another dry and fine day for many of us. Plenty of warm sunshine, but it is a little bit cloudier in the north and west. Further wet weather is going to arrive here later. For the time being, just a risk of some drizzly rain for the likes of Northern Ireland, far southwest of Scotland, perhaps moving into the far north of Scotland later on today. Elsewhere though, dry and bright, plenty of sunshine. Maybe a little bit hazy for some of us. We've still got the remnants of a weather front for some central areas of the UK, but it's going to be feeling warm in that June sunshine. Temperatures approaching the mid-20s for southeastern areas and even across central areas of England as well. So high UV levels, and it is in fact the summer solstice today, so the sun won't be setting till very late. We've got 19 hours of sunlight or daylight across Lerwick today, and somewhere between 19 and 16 hours across the UK. So plenty of sunshine, or time to enjoy the sunshine through today, and it will